Hello and welcome to Game Brain, a podcast about our gaming group. I'm Ben Mandelker. Joining me today, Mr. Tom Donnelly. Hi, Tom.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Welcome back from your summer of book touring.
It's been hot book summer. It absolutely has. I've been away from this podcast for longer than I ever have since its inception.
Wow. Books are brat this summer, they say.
They are very brat.
They're very brat. Speaking
who says
of...
that? Who says that?
Me, I've decided. I'm as a representative of Gen Z.
And books.
Actually, Tom, you're the one who's closest to Gen Z because you have two Gen Zers in your family.
Yeah, they keep me on my toes. They definitely, yeah.
The whole generation keeps us on our toes.
That's
but I guess
do.
that's just what happens with generations, right? I guess it's nothing new. Paul, what's going on with you?
Let's see. What's going on with me? I'm on a diet. I feel like
so he's happy and fulfilled, and
it's really weird because I'm on the carnivore diet, and before everyone says you could die on it, I know.
Okay.
It's basically a zero carb diet, and I find that I have more mental clarity and less emotional happiness.
Okay, well, yeah, unfortunately that happens.
Yeah,
sometimes they're inversely proportional sometimes it feels like, but
yeah, no.
So you're not going to be having any ice cream in this Los Angeles heat wave is what you're saying. You're not going to be going to Jenny's and having some nice cold
I am not going to be doing that, which is
sugary
actually really
Carvel off the table.
I was at Zanku yesterday, and David Gilson watched me eat half a chicken while I'm walking distance away from Carvel. It was quite
Wow.
Yeah.
if you take a donut away from a man, he'll be sad for a day. If you teach him a diet where he can't eat donuts ever again, he'll be sad for his entire life.
There you go.
I think obviously one of us is a writer.
Well, first of all, congrats, Tom, on the publication of your book. I don't know if we mentioned it or not, if there's been a podcast since then, or maybe there has been, but there
have been a couple. I haven't noticed any.
But now we are giving you the spotlight. Tom published his book finally.
Woo!
And it's out there on the charts, and it's taking America by storm. That's what I'm going to say.
Well,
I don't have any statistical evidence, but I'm going to say
it's the little book that could. It started off very well.
The Year of the Rabbit.
It's called Year of the Rabbit. It is a spy thriller, and my pen name is T.D. Donnelly.
I love that.
It is available
not Ameritrade, everyone.
Nope, not TD Ameritrade, TD Donnelly.
Yes.
It is available on Amazon exclusively. You can get it in paperback or in the ebook version, or if you are on Kindle Unlimited, you can read it right on Kindle Unlimited. It has been... So I went to... can I talk about BoucherCon? I'm going to talk about BoucherCon.
Yeah.
I went to BoucherCon, which is... There are two huge conventions each year for the mystery and thriller authors. BoucherCon is the one that is also for mystery and thriller readers. Met a lot of writers, and these are people that are published by the big publishing houses, and they could not believe that the book had only been out 2 weeks when I got there. They could not believe that I already had 55-star reviews. They could not believe that it was on the Amazon bestseller hot new release chart charted for an entire week in the top 10. People were really how did you just sit me down and tell me how you did that? We're traditionally published, so we don't have any say over that.
Yeah.
The publisher does that. But I come to find out that no. The reason I published it myself and created my own imprint, Thunder Road Press, is that a bunch of...
Is that a Springsteen reference?
It is. Well, my entertainment company is Thunder Road Entertainment.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
That's my loan out for the screenwriting, and so I created a DBA, doing business as, for Thunder Road Press for that.
Anyway. Sorry.
No, move me along. That's fine. So anyway, it turns out that most people, if you're not a top author at a publisher, you're doing your own work anyway. You are the one getting the word out. Nobody's pushing your book for you. And so they're basically doing almost the exact same thing I'm doing, but I'm getting 70% royalties and they're getting 8%.
Well, we like that. Yeah, well, that's amazing. It's an amazing accomplishment to just to write a book. So my hat is off to you if I had a hat.
Thank you very much for coming to my book launch party. You guys
it was wonderful. You did a reading. Paul was there.
There you go. Thank you.
Many other people of the group were there, but yeah, for sure, everyone go support Tom. Get keep his book at the top of that chart, so that way he gets more opportunities, and more great things coming to you.
I would really appreciate it, but I also say that I'm now at the point where I'm getting a lot of reviews from people I have never heard of, and
That's so fun.
Have never met,
and
great. they're all 5 stars. People are really enjoying the book, so
Yeah.
I think in
You'll
addition
enjoy it.
in addition to supporting me, I think you actually might like it / love it.
Yeah, well, really, congratulations to you.
Thank
It's really
you.
amazing, and it's really been exciting watching your journey, and so exciting. You've been working on it so hard for like 2 years or so. To see it finally pay off and be out in the world is really spectacular.
Yeah,
so,
no, thank you.
Super, super cool. So everyone, go check that out on Amazon exclusively. Paul, you're on a diet.
I got
That's
nothing.
your story.
So
what did you do, Paul?
We've already checked in with you, Paul.
Okay, so we have to talk about board games. Okay,
we talked about Palm Springs already, right?
we did. Remember, we did a Zoom. We're coming down with a COVID podcast. We actually somehow avoided COVID.
Yes, yeah.
Neither of us actually tested positive, which.
So I'm having my own Brat Summer.
Yeah, you're having. Yeah, exactly. We survived. So there's a ton, but I personally played a ton of games since then because my friend Brendan came into town, and then you came over, and we played a whole bunch of games one day, and then there's just been games coming through just in our podcast group. So there's a lot to discuss. Probably won't even get to everything that I've written down to talk about, because today we're also going to be doing a deep dive on Windmill Valley, which is kind of one of the big hyped midweight Euros that came out this summer.
Midweight Euros? You love midweight Euros.
I love midweight Euros, and I feel like I'm suddenly becoming an advocate for them. In a board game landscape that seems to be going either super heavy or super light, which all 3 categories I think are actually fantastic.
Like you're the moderate.
I'm just I'm just a sane centrist moderate.
That's right. You're a board game centrist.
But Windmill
The
Valley,
great unspoken middle.
yeah, thank you. I'm the anyway, it's a game I personally have been very excited for. It finally arrived, so we're going to talk about it because we've all played it a bunch of times, and it's a cool one. So before we get into that, though, want to talk about some board game plays, some interesting board games. Tom, have you been able to, with all your book touring, have you been able to do much gaming actually since we last checked in with you?
I mean, I did say this right before we started recording. This is like usually I'm a person that has gotten a lot of plays of new games, and I have not. This was Hot Book Summer, and I've been completely focused on that. I've still had the Friday game nights. I haven't been going to any other game nights other than the Fridays. And I'm kind of in a place where there's so much going on work-wise that I just want to play something I already know. And yeah, I've been playing a lot of classics, which has been fun.
Yep.
We played Genoa last night. I've been bringing out things like El Grande, Modern Art. It's really old standards of the industry. It's been fun.
Great. I played last night, by the way. I did not go to Tom's game night. I played hooky. Hooky. I went to my friend Larry. My friend Larry has a game night, and I'm always shunning him for Tom. And I felt like I needed to give Larry some love.
Larry some love.
Gotta give Larry's great.
Larry's actually great.
Larry's come to Tom's game night too. But I was like, let me give some love. That's so condescending. Let me give some love to Larry. No, but I wanted to hang out with Larry and his crew, and so we played Distilled by Dave Beck. Have you guys ever played Distilled?
I have not.
I have not. I know the game though. It looks like a very interesting, kind of viticulture for whiskey, right?
Yeah, it's a game I've seen mentioned multiple times. It's constantly popping up. It's popping up on various year-end lists or Golden Geek things. It gets mentioned on our Discord. By the way, join our Discord. So when Larry was like, "Let's play Distilled," I was really excited. I love a real world theme, especially booze. Why not?
Now, how heavy versus light? Where would you put the game?
This is I think it's a middle.
A theory. Yeah, middle.
It's a middle. It's a mid pack. Middleweight, I should say, not mid pack. It's a real funky game. It was nothing like I was expecting. Like the general gist of it, if I can summarize it quickly, is like we all have a distillery in front of us, which is inherently cool.
In the title. Very
Yeah,
clever. Very clever.
and we all have like a series of recipes that we could make. Like you might be able to make some brandy or some whiskey or some aquavit.
3 peats, and I'm going to get some oak brandy casks. And
Yeah.
we're gonna, right?
You have to, over the course of the game, you have to do things like acquire barrels, acquire bottles. You have to get your ingredients. You need to get your yeast. You need to get your water. You need to get grain sugar, or maybe you want to get plant sugar, or maybe get fruit sugar. You can upgrade your distillery by getting various things. You can get like a drone camera for your distillery. You could, I forget what I had a coppery. No, not a coppery, a coopery. I think it was a coopery. I had a large storage area, so you can build it out, which is always like really fun. And you acquire these ingredients, but the sort of the game loop. I'm gonna try to really be, I don't want to get in the weeds of it, but essentially every round you gather ingredients from this market. You buy ingredients, you collect ingredients, and you decide which ingredients you want to put into your spirit. Because again, you have your recipes. So like, I don't know, like aquavit. Is it aquavit or aquavit?
Veet,
V.
I think.
Okay, aquavit.
I think.
I never really know. I'm gonna say aquavit. We're gonna go with the Tom Donnelly.
I think
since
Veet. I think you do say the T. So aquavit.
Aquavit. That's a little bit of both.
I think so.
Scandinavian.
Marcus Samuelsson, the famous chef, I was at his. He had a restaurant in New York called Aquavit,
right?
And that's how they pronounced it.
Okay, perfect. So aquavit in this game is like, okay, if you make a spirit that has at least one type of sugar in it, like whether it's like of these two, either grain or plant, then you've successfully made aquavit. And so what you do is you take all your ingredients, which is like a little deck of cards. Now you've made maybe like 6 cards.
So like a little bit of a deck builder.
No,
Okay.
it's sort of, but not really.
Okay.
So you grab the ingredients that you've assembled, which are in card form. You shuffle them up. First of all, so you have to have like a yeast, and you have to have a sugar, and a water. You have to have at least those 3 types of cards in your little deck that you've made in order to actually brew a spirit. You shuffle. You remove the top card and the bottom card, because it is, after all, an imprecise art to make a spirit. And
I mean, thematically, you have to skim the top layer
you
off.
get the alcohol.
And the dregs you can't use either.
Exactly. It actually, I will say this, everything in this game thematically is like 10 out of 10. Everything makes sense. It feels exact. It just feels right. So then you turn over, you're like, oh, what did I make? I tried to make aquavit. Oh, no. Unfortunately, I skimmed out my sugar card by accident, and I've now made moonshine, some crappy moonshine. So that act is actually very fun. And cool. Then it's like, it's because it's like silly, and it's very much like, what did I make? Oh, no, I made shit. Or, oh, I made a delightful, vodka or something. But it's just what I didn't love about the game was it felt a little bit like rinse and repeat. Like you sort of progress, but like you make some money when you then sell your booze, and then you can age stuff and you can add flavor to the stuff. And there's a lot of fun. Again, the theming is great. There's fun stuff, a lot of joking, a lot of laughter around the table. Mm-hmm. I found the gameplay loop, though, to be a little unsatisfying, which is weird. It seems like all the components are there, but there's something kind of like convoluted or...
Not enough of a growth in the game state from beginning to end?
There is. You do progress. You make enough money, you can buy more ingredients, but it's somehow... I was terrible at this game. Like when I say I was terrible at it, everyone's score was like 140 or something like that, and I was at 80. I was like, I was terrible at it, but I felt like the puzzle was not necessarily a fascinating puzzle to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I have a theory about these games. I think that when people get into designing these games, like viticulture, like those games, what they're thinking is, oh, we can have like non-gamers who are whiskey aficionados, who are wine people. We can get them together. We can play this game, and because they know stuff about the subject matter, they're going to get into the game. And this is why we're bringing other people into the hobby. We can have these great, sophisticated whiskey tasting / distillery plays. Mm-hmm. And what seems to end up happening more often than not, because the sweet spot for that would be a light game. It'd be a light game that does, I think the card thing you described is a great thematic
thing. Every time you do it, it's really fun.
It's smart. It's smart. It makes sense. But the problem is that these designers, when they get into it, they realize, oh, but there's this part of the process and there's this part of the process, and they end up making a more complicated game than the audience that might really love that game.
Right. It's weird because it's not like it was that complicated. Because essentially what you're doing is every round you're basically drafting cards from a big display, and you're going around and you're drafting and drafting and drafting. It's like, oh, I want that wine barrel. This has a special ability, so you want to get it. And then someone else reveals. And so you're essentially just like drafting and drafting until you're done drafting, and then you shuffle, and then that's what you have. And so when you really sort of whittle it down to that, like that's not, to me, that's just not the most compelling game loop. But like, so while the actions are fun, of like making your brew, and like when you age it, you add these flavor cards, and you never know what flavor you're getting. You know, so when you finally like take it out of the barrel after like a round or two of aging, you turn over your flavor cards, and it's like, oh, so there's a note of orange peel, but there's also a note of manure, and like it's very funny, you know.
Okay. Is there a way to cull the deck to make a more predictable? As you get
things to help your distillery, you can do things to control your deck a little bit more. But it felt, I know what you're saying about like sometimes designers in a pursuit of trying to be accurate to the theme add way too many gameplay elements to convolute it. Here I just felt it was convoluted because actually convoluted is not the right word. It just felt like it's just like a whole bunch of cards and just picking from card to card to card to card, and all the text on the cards is tiny. It's so tiny. So you're spending a lot of time. You don't even really know half the stuff that your cards can do until you get it. And you're like, oh, it does that. So
you're so old.
Yeah,
you're so old.
No, this is, even if you were young, you'd have a hard time. So I mean, you know, I think it's on BGA.
It might hit the viticulture thing, which for me these days is. There are some middleweight games are middleweight games, and they're great. Matter of fact, we're going to be talking about one later on this podcast. But there are some middleweight games that hit that it's not right for either audience. You know what I mean? It's like too complicated for beginning gamers, and it doesn't have enough play variety for the more the
people who want a heavier,
correct, and it doesn't serve either audience, and that's right. A tough spot.
I think the viticulture does serve its audience, because I
used to love it, and I've kind of soured on it over the years. I play it probably once or twice a year. It's turned a little bit,
but that doesn't mean that the game. I don't think that the game is met. I think it's just be that your tastes have maybe moved on. But 100%. I think the game itself, like I think a lot of people, it's a lot of people's first work replacement, and it's like it is a little, the aging of the wine in viticulture sometimes can be hard for people to grok, and making like the blushes and stuff. But like what I like about viticulture that I didn't connect with as much with Distilled is that I think especially the Tuscany expansion, like the planning of, I've got these workers, where am I going to use them? How am I going to thread this needle, etc. And you're looking at your card and you're figuring stuff out. And there was like just a more interesting puzzle to me. Whereas in Distilled, it was just like, okay, I have this much money. What is the best thing I can buy with my money right now? There's strategy in it. Like, don't get me wrong. There's like, how do I decide what recipes I'm going to research and make, etc. But
it sounds like, you know, in viticulture, like you are actually not. It's not about, you know, the wine, right? It's about the process of making wine.
Right.
Whereas what you're describing seems to be like the fun of it is the actual product,
the tasting.
So that's interesting. Although back to Tom, like I was, you said that, you know, I'm curious what Trey would say to what you just said about, you know, in trying to get, you know, new people, because are you, I don't know what designers do. Do they go interest forward, or do they go customer forward, you know, as far as, you know, because like
I don't know. I mean, but it does seem to me like everybody in this hobby, I think to some greater or lesser degree, wishes that more people would try their game and experience their game. And if you're a heavy gamer, you know, to some degree, you're looking at, well, how can we bring midweight gamers up to this, right? And for midweight gamers, it's like, how do we take beginners and make this more appealing to them? It's always like, how can we take this larger audience, right? The lighter the game, the larger, the broader the audience is that is theoretically going to be responsive to that. And I think with these wine and whiskey games, I think it does have that kind of thing where I think a lot of people looking at buying these games is like, well, guess what? We can have the neighbors over. We can have a little wine tasting.
They
we
can
have
envision
a little fun night.
It creates buy-in,
Yeah.
basically. And so I think especially if people who are newer, they, sometimes they're confronted with a lot of rules and some concepts that may be challenging at first. And if there's a buy-in, there's like a sense of like, okay, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to push through. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to keep my mind open to these concepts. Whereas if it's like something that's maybe not as appealing, they say, oh, this is ridiculous. This is nerd stuff, know?
If you did in Distilled, if you did a whiskey tasting first and you're teaching people, okay, so this has notes of this and this is notes of this, and that's because this is how this was made, and this is how that was made. You're kind of teaching the game mechanics to some degree before you even bring the game out. Yeah,
and again, the mechanics in Distilled are not, it's not that they're terribly hard. It's just that like you have this giant display of cards. You have 3 rows of like about 4 cards each, plus a discard piles, plus another big display. And just like a lot of cards, and it's hard to read all the text. It's hard to know exactly like how to use them at first. And so it's just like you're kind of confronted with a wall of information, and that might be harder for newer players. But I don't think Distilled is necessarily for newer players. But it was like, again, I think there was the pluses and minuses to the game. From a first gameplay standpoint, I thought art was great, graphic design bad. I think the theme wonderful, entertainment value was good, but gameplay was not very satisfying to me. I would play it again, but I don't think I would seek it out, and I definitely wouldn't buy it at this point.
And too small for you is 3-point font. Is that correct?
Too small. I think. What do you mean by too small? Gameplay or
no? I mean the text. The 3-point font is probably not good.
It was. I wish I had a card, because it was horrifying how small this text was. Like it was like this. Like if you have here's where I got really upset. If you have a giant display of cards where it's all about a card draft, so you really care about everything. It's not like you are in viticulture where you pull a card and then it's straight up in your face and then you can read it. It's just like, oh, all these cards are all the way across the table, and I have to see and I have to inspect all of them. And on top of that, I was playing a 5-player game, so these cards are rotating through, and so you're constantly having to get up and look. It was like a little maddening.
Okay, boomer. Okay, boomer. That's fine.
Damn, I was gonna say that. The joke was that it was that obvious. Yeah. Okay. Well.
So a game that has arrived in our group and seems to be now the new hotness in the Game Brain group. Rise and Fall. It's fulfilling its Kickstarter. Christoph Bollinger designed this game. I backed it. I got my copy. Jordan backed it. Trey backed it. Did you back that?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. I read up on it and I was like, interesting, very interesting. I'm gonna wait and see on this one. And see what the situation is. It was played last night at my game night, and it was the other game. I played Genoa, and they played that. Man, talk about table presence.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful table presence. And this is such a good accompaniment for Railways Lost Atlas, because it's another building your world thing. So, Paul,
hey, it's me.
You've played it twice.
I've played it twice.
Tell me, and by the way, we're going to be doing a full review of it either next week or in 2 weeks. I mean, I don't want to promise because everyone's busy, but I know that it sounds like Matt and Jordan might be doing a review of it. I know that they're extremely enthusiastic about it. I've only played it once.
I heard wildly different opinions last night.
I
was there.
Tell me everything, Paul.
I'm not saying what the opinions were. I'm leaving that for Paul. But I was
Paul,
here.
Tell us everything about Rise and Fall.
I'll tell you everything. Okay.
Tell us everything. I have my opinions.
So I played twice. The first time with Jordan, Matt.
And by the way, I'm sorry. I also want to say we don't have to get too deep with this because again, we're doing a full review.
I won't. I played with Matt, Jordan, Ben, and me.
Yeah, we did that first game.
And first of all, it's a beautiful game.
Mm-hmm.
It's striking. 10 out of 10 chef's kiss kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where and you build the world, and I think you start with water, then you go with plains, and then forests and mountains and ice caps, and it's kind of like one of those time lapse things where you just see the world just come up, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. This is really cool. I think a modular map is always great.
It's wonderful.
And then the essence is like you're it's primarily area control, and like all these little regions, and you put your stuff in, and you just try to get area control with various things. Like once again, I don't want to go too far because I met in Jordan. I had a very hard game of it, game one. Yeah. Because I felt like I was like two things happened to me simultaneously. Matt like converted a boat of mine, and Jordan like locked in
your spawning play.
Exactly.
Basically, like you had a boat that got converted to Matt's religion.
Yeah.
So you lost the boat, and then you had a city centrally located that was going to be like the hub of your society.
And there was only one place I could grow, and two places. And Jordan built a city in that place.
He blocked you basically,
and so
in the first like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was within the first.
And then he was like, "Guys, I don't know about you guys, but I'm loving this game."
Yeah, and so in the end, like my game was already like curbed, by round 4. I still beat Ben.
I had a bigger flop than I did with Distilled. I'll tell you that much.
And but like I was going like, oh, this is there are not as many guardrails as like you would think.
There's no guard, and you wouldn't actually. It's my first play. I was surprised at how many guardrails you actually do need. It doesn't seem like a game that you need guardrails, but it's it was like you mess up and you're like you're SOL.
It's surprise. It's like one of those like if you can't lose in round 1, like why play? Well, you can lose in round 1. Like there's
and you were basically banished to the corner of the map for 2 hours, moving your pieces around, but you had a good attitude about
it, like he deserves.
Exactly,
and I still beat Ben.
Well observed. Yeah, I lost magnificently because for a few things. I had not fully absorbed a lot of the nuances of just the gameplay. Mm-hmm. I was by the time I had absorbed it and I was building my engine, the game ended. And so in the game, you can do like a short, medium, or epic length game. Sure. And we did the short game. And I actually would like to play it with the medium length because I felt like I just wanted a little more time to build an engine. Sure. It was like I was sort of doing I think I was doing a lot of things, but like when I just wanted more time. But yeah, it sort of culminates in the area like when there's like these trophies you get, and then when a certain number of trophies have been claimed, the game ends.
Yeah.
And so it's in my mind, it's kind of like hot potato or musical chairs. It's like, okay, where are your pieces?
That's so interesting.
Where are your pieces when the music ends and everyone has to sit down, or when you're holding left with a hot potato? And the thing is, with the area control, it's like all the terrains that you make turn out to all be basically areas that you can score. And there's no second place. It's like you either have it or you don't. And I basically was like second in like a lot of places, but I was first only in one. I got like
our hearts.
Yeah, I got like I think I got 3 or maybe 9 points, whereas everyone else was getting like 80, 100 points.
Yeah. Like the score was like 230 something to 218 something to 80. To 79.
I had 50 points.
Oh, yeah.
No, 47 or 50 points. It was 54.
It was dire. But what was it? Well, so we played yesterday. I think there was a game.
Did you do the short again?
We did, yeah. I think there was
Who'd you play with?
I played with Trey, Dimitri, and David Gilson. But before that, back to the first game, like Matt won with what I consider a degenerate strategy. I use that word because there's another, and only in praise. This is not in any. This is so the majority of the game is area control, but like there's a part where there's a cash strategy basically where you can like cash is worth every 2 is worth a point, and there's a way to like acquire a bunch of points. And Matt was just like flogging this one. He didn't care anything about the area control. He was flogging this, and we were just watching it happen. I was going like, oh, this is so beautiful.
He was just getting money.
You're playing my game, Matt. I'm so proud of you.
He actually had almost no other choice.
Yeah, exactly.
His boats were just stuck.
And then apparently Tuesday he did a similar strategy. So we played yesterday, and like I'm already a little salty because of my last experience.
Yeah.
And so,
and the fact that you're off carbs.
yes, that's right, because I don't have sugar and I have to eat more electrolytes. Very good. Thematic.
If you wanna see Paul bring his teeth out, the fangs come out when he is not.
I'm ready for a Euro game about keto dieting.
Yeah, that's great. Well, anyway, so it's Trey, me, Dimitri, David in that order. So we're placing our pieces. Trey places his piece, no problem. I place far away from Trey. Dimitri, he stares at the board for longer than like I would think you should for your. And then all of a sudden he goes, "Okay, fine," and he just puts it right next to my city.
Was that in front of him? Was that in his arm? His arm.
It
radius?
was.
That's your problem. Dimitri does not play the game. He plays what can I move around in arm's length for me.
Really interesting. That man's thought process is so opaque.
You have to think of the radius of where his arm can reach as like it's like
that's only one factor. There's a lot
it's like a prison light, you know, and so
yeah.
you just have to like stay away from the spotlight.
But what was really interesting was like within that arc, there's still a lot of places.
But Dimitri likes hanging around with you.
Yeah, no. like he puts
He's like,
it there,
look,
and my first response,
the city next to you.
I swear, like I watch him put it there, and like I could, if you could just watch the signal go from like visual light to my eye to my brain to explode to go to hold it together to go, interesting.
Was it he put down a city?
Yeah.
Next to your city?
Yeah.
Well, of course, because Dimitri's like, oh no, now we have beautiful city area with great restaurants, theater.
And so
I don't know. I like where you were going.
It is beautiful.
Apparently, and then as the game progressed, systematically he just starts surrounding my city with other cities.
It's smothering your city with love.
Like because there's a choke point there, and I'm going like, if he's doing this intentionally, well done. If he's just doing this because it's within the arc of
his arm,
I'm gonna. It's okay. It's okay. Are you upset? Maybe. Is it the food? Maybe. I don't know.
Did I mention that I heard a lot of strong opinions coming from the other table where they were playing that game?
But you know,
they were.
But to me, this is actually a selling point of the game because it's like the experience you could have on the map could be wildly different every time. Like it will generate a different gameplay experience based on what the other players are doing, right?
That is 100%. I'll talk about that just a little before. Anyway, so I go like, oh, well, I guess my boat is way out there. I'll just do the Matt Degenerate strategy. You know, the thing was Dimitri apparently had watched Matt or was playing with Matt or something because he was doing that like next to me. and so so he surrounded the isthmus with his cities, and I'm going like, oh, well, here's an opportunity. And so what I did was I converted my my settlers to like merchants, and then I just started making
capitalizing.
Yeah, and so I made I did the cash strategy in a way that I had not expected, just because Dimitri had created such an opportunity.
Yeah,
and I was like, I would not have thought that this is the way the game was going to turn out. Like, there was no way that I could maneuver this to happen. It just evolved in front of me, and then I took advantage of that. So, like,
which is really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was really neat. Like, I didn't expect that to happen. Like, I thought I was out because I didn't play the area control, but it turns out at the end, because everyone was fighting over it, no one was dealing with me, I won the area control too.
Wow. See, my problem when I did the area control is, I thought I could do something. Everyone had the way the map was that there were a lot of people that had gathered on this random isthmus where Paul got blocked out, and everyone was on this isthmus, and there was this giant area, and I was like, I'm gonna build like a little barricade of cities, which means that like it's gonna be hard for people to spread into this big area. But Jordan kind of leached in there, and by leached in there, like he had full access. I really had not closed off nothing. I just closed.
But in your mind,
it seemed in my mind that he got. I was like, I put a barricade in the south. How did he get in the north? He leached in. It was like
people have to understand that when Jordan does things like that, it just feels wrong. Okay, there's nothing specific you can put your finger on.
I had definitely established in my mind some entitlement over that region. But
you were so anti.
I know, but one thing that happened was that I had built a temple strategically, And then I forgot to play the temple card. And so Jordan, I could have converted Jordan's he had two little nomads, two little low level, and I could have converted them and I forgot. And Jordan, to his credit, was like, if you want to do a take back, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll live with my mistake.
Because when he tells you that, it's because something bad is about to happen.
Oh yeah, because he converted them into. First of all, he spawned them into like cities, and then turned them into temples, and then turned them and then made the cities into more nomads. And those nomads became merchants. And I didn't realize, because again, it was like about learning the nuances of all the movements. I didn't realize that merchants can move like the mountaineers. And I know for people who've never played this game, who have no context, this all sounds like gobbledygook. But you have different classes of things.
Wait for
next week. But the point was that I didn't realize he had as much mobility with his merchants as he did. So then he leached into an area that I was taking over. And so like really all the areas that I was aiming for, he just kind of took over. And then I had nowhere to go and then the game ended. And so for me, what happened was that like I was really enjoying the game a lot. And I was so impressed with how really simple the rules are if you really look at it,
it's a lot of game for like just a small rule set.
Really deep considerations, like just everything you talked about, everything that I'm talking about. We're not even talking about how you use your cards and everything. This card management, it's really deep. But I felt it was anticlimactic that in the end, it all just, for me, it felt like it whittles down to either like how much cash you have or where are you standing.
Yeah.
What are all these pieces? They don't build like an infrastructure to me. It's just where's it. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just like it left me feeling a little on like a meh note, and that meh note sort of carried on for the next like 10 days. But I think actually that they say go to a restaurant, the dessert is the most important thing.
Are you off carbs too? Because it sounds like you're off carbs.
God, I wish I were. I think I'm in the opposite direction.
Like diabetes.
Now, but like there was somebody last night who hated the game.
Yeah.
I just want to say one last thing, which is that I think I've worked through the men. I'm actually really excited to play the game again. And again, like I backed it. This is a game I've tinkered with the app when I was able to tinker with the app. I did a lot of research. I watched playthroughs. I am fully into this game. But like that initial playthrough, it just sort of ended on kind of a note, enough of a note for me that I was not compelled to dive back into it. But I'm like, my body's ready now. So, so tell me about what the reactions.
So like, Trey and Dimitri Trey and Dimitri. Trey really likes it, and he's been working on the app.
How did that? I tried to go on the app last night. Is it only Android? Is it only PC?
That I don't know. You'll have to ask Trey that. Like Dimitri was, like Dimitri about it, but David Gilson. So one of the things that we love about David is he really, will be invested in the game. So he's looking at all the stuff.
Yeah.
And notice how I use the word invested.
Tom and I just looked at each other with a knowing look.
Yeah, look. David is one of those people that very much couches all of his opinions. He doesn't, he doesn't come out strongly for or against anything. He just finds everything to be. No, that's not David at all. No, David will give the most fiery opinion you've ever heard.
So what was really funny was like there was one move, something happened, and David had the opportunity to take a card back. Like buy his card back. It doesn't matter. Like and he chose not to, partly because I might have strayed him. Point him in a different direction, but it wasn't. Anyway.
This is No Car Paul. No Car Paul is a real bastard.
Bastard.
And so then Trey comes back, and it looks like he can't do what he's going to do, which is convert. He only has one card to play, which is Temple, and he only has 2 coins. This is not going to mean a lot of anything. Anyway, know that like Trey plays his card, he gets a bunch of money, and converts like David's only. The thing that he needs to convert the most. And then, he throws together, this game sucks. I hate this.
Yeah.
And it was, and it's understandable.
We're playing Genoa at the other end of the table, which is a negotiation game that is notoriously loud and raucous. And we all stop, we turn, and we're like, oh. There's something happening down there.
Was he having a meltdown?
He was having a complete meltdown.
I'm so mad I missed this.
And I understand it.
It was fun.
Trey understood it.
Trray, yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Trey's like, there but the grace of God go I, right?
But I think what this speaks to is in the game is that there are very few guardrails.
Yeah.
Like, like you can get really, really, and this is, like, after the first game, I became aware of that, and I was prepared for that. The game looks so inviting, and and with the card play, it seems so. And
there's no in the base game at least. There's no like combat, like even though it's a big old map, like there's no like we're in a.
There's one conversion thing that is
right, but there's no like, hey, we're both in the same hex. Let's now play some cards or roll some dice, and we're gonna fight it out. It's just like you're just moving along. It seems like it's almost gonna be conflict free.
Yeah, it looks,
but it
looks so beautiful, and it looks like such a Euro.
But it's basically like an abstract.
But let's recognize that if there is a defining characteristic of what makes a Euro game, it's guardrails. That is the essence of that. That versus Ameritrash or whatever, those other games are games that are much more, hey, you can do what you want. There's going to be a much higher degree of chaos in the game if it's not a Euro game. There's going to be a much greater chance of really getting slammed by somebody that you don't see coming. That seems to be,
and I think our group, there are definitely people in our group who love a lack of a guardrail because they love the life or death stakes that creates, and they love the ability to maybe like the feeling you get when you successfully don't get knocked off because of the guardrail, and the feeling of also knocking other people off.
Arcs, I would argue, is guardrail light. I think Arcs is a game where there is a lot of possibilities with the various combinations of things to have some really big, devastating moves that really wail on somebody, and they don't feel it coming and things like that. So there's a whole design.
Yeah,
but I would say like tune into the next episode because it'll be really in depth, and it's a great game. I love a game that is high in brutality, and this has the option of that. Like, I think the reductive thing is like, be prepared to have a first and second terrible game.
Yeah,
like if you can do that, like I think you'll find it has a lot to offer.
And I want to clarify, I wasn't mad because I lost or that I did so badly. I was just mad that like you have this game that really presents like it's this big civilization game, like we're building up our societies, building cities, building people, and it all just sort of comes down to like, okay, then where's everyone standing when it's over? And there's nothing wrong with that because there's gameplay in getting into position and being ready, but it didn't give me, to me, it did not feel like
it's
big
interesting
climactic.
you say that because like, when we talk about Atlas or like 21 Moon, you go like, oh, what I really miss is the ability for the players to end the game. And in this game, the players end the game. And you're like, that's it?
Well, no, but I think it's because it was so, I don't know, like I think though with an 18XX, like there's like phases and progression, and like there's a sense of like big economic growth, and like the Atlas board really comes alive to me in a way that's like very evocative, and it's not so much about about players. I don't, I'm not even going to get into it because
we're going to
there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
But
speaking of
endings
Atlas,
are important.
Yeah, endings are important. So, but I think it just was like an initial thing, and I'm really excited to play around with it. But speaking of Lost Atlas, I have to talk. Was this? Were you throwing me a bone there, a transitional bone?
I'm practicing my hosting skills, maybe I can one day. That's right.
I have to talk about
the Ben drama.
Ben drama. Ben drama with the Railways of the Lost Atlas. This is so far probably my game of the year. I love Railways of the Lost Atlas. It's so fun. And I was really excited to introduce it to some of my non-Game Brain friends who like 18XX. So Paul and I gathered at our friend Judy's place, and our friends Stacy and John also came as 5 of us to play Railways of the Lost Atlas over Labor Day weekend. And we're going to play the long game. You have to play the long game with 5 players. And I was so excited to introduce this modular board, this world, mergers and special companies. And the game started, and everyone, first of all, the TLDR, everyone loved it. Like there was never, not a problem with the game. But I had some financial mismanagement early on in the game, and by a series of
I'm not familiar with these 18xx games. Is that a problem in those games?
Speaking of guardrails and lack thereof, 18xx, the king of those. So anyway, long story short, I wound up in a situation. I sort of pushed my luck. I started up a company that I put two trains in, which is the most basic train, and the train limit in that company was only 2. So I knew I was going to have to bail it out at some point before they got rusted away. Long story short, Paul rusts them with the 4 train, which is fine. I was like, I'll just have to sell a share of my stock to raise $70, and I will then purchase a new train for this company, and we will move on, and the game will unfold for the next several hours. But unfortunately, Stacy and John, prior to that operating round, had dumped my stock, and the game's rules is that there can never be more than 50% of a company's stock in the bank, in the bank pool. No. So, and unfortunately, I had invested carelessly only in myself. So when I then tried to sell, I had no money left because it was the beginning of the operating round. For people who don't don't know 18xx, I know this sounds like gobbledygook, but also like get into it. You'll love it.
It's amazing.
It's
what he's saying is that in 18xx it could be a very mean game because you have to suffer the consequences of every single decision you make in the game.
Yeah,
and Ben
I suffered.
Slapped.
So basically, it's like equivalent of like you're playing a board game. You have a part of your engine. Part of that engine goes away, so you have to raise money to buy a new part of your engine. And I basically was not allowed to sell the thing I needed to sell to raise that money. So essentially what happened was at the top of round 3 of this game, it's a 6-round game. And this is what, in hour maybe 2?
Maybe 2 hours. Then.
Maybe hour 2, I went bankrupt. I went bankrupt and I was eliminated from Railways of the Lost Atlas. And
delicious.
It was hilarious. So I was like, oh, okay. I felt bad. I was like, well, I guess I feel bad. I'm like basically aborting this game. I wanted them to go through all the whole path, but I got bankrupted. So that's the end of the game. And I looked in the rules. It says that player's eliminated and the game goes on. I was like, oh, okay. So
Monopoly rules, baby.
But I was like, okay, that's fine. So Paul.
Yeah, I was winning.
Paul had a
commanding.
He had a commanding lead because he had, it doesn't matter why. He just was in a position where because of excellence. It was going to be hard for the other 3 to catch up to him because he had carbs. So
he was at the end of carbs. He knew that the carb-free time was coming, and he was storing up for winter. He was ready.
It was literally like because Paul had like it doesn't matter. It just came down to $4 that allowed Paul to open up a second company, and then it was amazing. But like so, normal 18xx convention is that. Usually if someone goes bankrupt, even if the game says keep going, everyone just says, okay, let's wrap this up. Let's yield. Someone's been eliminated. We should probably wrap this up. But I wasn't going to say that because I was the one who got eliminated. And I think it would be kind of lame if I was like, oh, well, guys, I messed up, so you guys all have to stop playing. I didn't want to be that person.
And so you texted one of them and told them, will you please say?
Well, you were also being a good host for the game. Because
I also wanted them to play the game.
Yeah, you wanted to show people what it was going to be. And it looked like it was going to end a lot faster.
Yeah, and so, and the thing is this, yeah, so anyway, well, Judy was like, guys, well, maybe should we restart? And then John was like, no, I think I want to keep playing. So then I was like,
that's
okay.
awesome.
Because he doesn't know the convention.
That's awesome.
And the thing was this, if we had been later in the game, it would have been fine. But we're still like...
We've hit the first act.
2 hours left?
Yeah, we've only really done 2 rounds. We really have 4 rounds. We've only completed 1/3 of the game. It's enough time to really kind of just restart the game from fresh. But so then I was like, okay, well, Paul will surely say we should probably stop. And then no one said anything. And I was like, okay. So I was like, guys, I'll be the banker. So I was the banker, and it was actually still fun.
No.
You
get out the vacuum cleaner at that point. You just start vacuuming the carpet.
I was like, guys,
get out
anyone needs
the ironing board.
So I was like, but it looked like, because Atlas goes pretty quickly, but then it was just like going and going, and it was really fun. And then it's like we order Thai food, and then all of a sudden it's like 8:30 or 9. I texted Paul and I was like, Paul, I think you should propose that we shut this game down. I was like, I don't want to
move. That's it.
Yeah, because I'm like, it's Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
It's like a day of gaming, and I'm going to spend the entire day not gaming, essentially. Like,
Yeah.
like it was several hours. So finally, I actually wound up saying,
Yeah.
guys, I hate to be this way, but I don't.
Still didn't do it.
Well, no,
I actually didn't even give him a chance. I just kind of told him, but it was hilarious that I got myself ejected from my own game.
Now, did you have a conversation with? I mean, Paul's a friend, right? I mean, ostensibly. Did you have a conversation with him about why didn't you step in when you saw that was going on?
Yeah, Paul, why didn't you step in and
I
be a-
tell you, like, first,
I mean, I would immediately have said,
because when Ben was out, I go like, oh, well, that's the end of the game, right? And he goes, no.
It's not. It was. It's actually It's actually a little shocking,
Yeah.
considering that Railways Lost Atlas, so much of it seems to be bringing new people in, that you would think they would kind of have like this, like, okay. It also encourages people not to necessarily bankrupt people if it means that's going to be the end of the game.
Yeah.
Because if that's going to be the end of the game, then someone who may be ready to.
but there is no 18xx game that has that. There's a social convention only, right?
Chesapeake, several do actually.
Yeah.
Chesapeake
Okay,
does that.
Well, I guess the
and
more beginner ones. Yeah,
I'm not even sure. Some of the other ones may. I just haven't looked it
So
up.
I go like, well, that's the end of the game. I start wrapping up, and then they go, oh no, it's just a player, and I go, okay. I thought I was saying like, we're done, right, Ben? And Ben goes, no, we can feel.
Because I want this
Yes,
is where
absolutely.
my psychological damage comes. Where I'm like, I don't want to cause. I don't want to cause a scene.
Okay,
so don't bother.
So to be clear,
Ben.
to be clear, what Paul didn't pick up on was the fact that you need to say it at least twice.
Judy said it.
No. Judy
No,
said it, but you should. I think that Paul, you as the more experienced person, should have
correct.
said, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, we should. Like, why don't we restart the game? We're not in far enough that and we'll be able to go through this part quicker. Now you guys understand how it plays. Let's restart. We can even do the same map.
Ben is in good host mode. You have to let him say no. You guys should continue, and then you need to say no. I have a limited amount of game time, and I want to play with my friends.
Oh,
and Ben, you are one of my
Paul, I think you
dear
failed me.
friends.
I think you failed me as a friend.
Exactly right.
Like obviously, I failed you. And I apologize.
but he
Maybe you
apologized
haven't
prior.
because now we have this story. This story is amazing.
But to be fair, like if we're gonna really be reductive about it, you kind of failed yourself.
Yeah, I failed myself first before you failed me. And you know what though? But I did win though. I won game night because all three of them, Judy, Stacy, and John, are like, can't wait to play this game again. And Tom, you have to play it because you haven't played it yet.
I haven't played it. There's so many things. Hot Book Summer has really cut into my. I need to play both of the games we just talked about.
Well, you've been saying like you weren't going to play with Tom because of when we were teaching it, he was so loud.
Quiet, Paul. Quiet.
It was so loud when you were teaching.
Oh God, yes.
I
Tom,
noticed.
Oh my goodness, Tom, you traumatized me this summer when I was trying to teach this game to Trey.
Yep.
Who is not an 18xxer, and I'm trying to teach it to Trey, and you were playing Modern Art, and you were being so loud, and you pulled out a gavel and you were banging this gavel. Imagine trying to teach 18xx in a way that's inviting to someone, and all they hear is this bang, 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 sold. I was losing my mind that night.
I noticed that. When I noticed that,
and yet you persist. And yet he persists.
I was like, a hero.
No. I took it from a 10 to a 7 easily. Let's be clear. It's modern art, and it's the new version that has the gavel and the wooden gavel thing. You can't not gavel. You can't not gavel.
I
You
agree.
can take it down a little
but
bit.
It was like a boom. I mean, it was like literally Judge Judy over there. But that being said,
I noticed that there was a look of perturbation upon your face.
Yes,
and I was like, "Oh, Ben's getting in the red. I got to calm it down."
I will say though, getting back to the game though, like it was really funny to go bankrupt. I haven't gone bankrupt too often. It has happened, but like I don't go up bankrupt too often, and it was hilarious. and it's another guardrail moment or lack thereof. And it was, again, like, what I really like about Lost Atlas is that it does kind of present like it's this intro 18xx, more accessible.
And it is.
But it 100% is, but there's definitely some, like, it doesn't mean that it's all going to be like easygoing. Like, you get into trouble. Like when we played in Palm Springs, there was the Jordan issue where, Jordan, like, Paul dumped, after I mentioned, Paul dumped his company on Jordan, and then Jordan was like an unhappy camper for the rest of the day. So like it
could have been the COVID.
And he had COVID. But the point is like the game still has its sharp edges.
Look, carbs and COVID, those are two things that you really have to manage in your board game. When I started playing 18xx, it was 1830. There was basically, it was the only thing that
you started that long ago?
Yeah, very long time ago.
1830.
Yeah.
You're older than I thought.
Okay.
You see what I'm making a joke.
Okay, Boomer.
I'm making a joke that you started playing 18xx in 1830.
Oh, I get it.
I got it.
Because it also works as a true slam because it is a very old game.
I know, but I wasn't
early Francis Tresham.
Yes, it was. The joke was that
I understand.
You were playing in the year 1830.
But 1830 is
Tom, you look
notoriously
good for 1830.
You look good for being a vampire.
1830 is one of those games where bankruptcies are much more common than a lot of the other games. But a feature, not a bug, for sure.
And I just want to say real quickly, as long as I'm in my 18xx corner, a game I'm really excited about that's coming to Kickstarter soon is a game called 18 Royal Gorge by Kayla Ross and Denman Schofield. And I only recently started to look into it because they posted their rule book on BGG. And first and foremost, their rule book is excellent because they really take some of the tropes of like a Euro rulebook. So instead of like a wall of text, there's a lot of graphic design, a lot of things broken off into boxes or whatever. It's just very digestible, which I think is such a great direction. But also it has a really cool MacGuffin, which is that your companies, when they build on the map, your companies can lay up to 6 tiles at a time. However, in order to lay a tile, you have to buy steel. And there's a company that controls the steel. And so the first steel is going to be like $10, and the next one's $20, the next one's $30. But if it's a green, it's going to be even more expensive. So you can lay up to 6, but you're spending more and more money, and that money's going to that company. Then that company pays out dividends. So if you invest in a steel company,
so it's got a little bit of Snowdonia in it and stuff.
Well, there's like an element of like, maybe I invest in this company that's gonna like that the train companies rely on.
It's like which one where you buy shares in England.
Australia.
And
then there's also another thing that's cool about the game is that I think if you play with like 3 or 4 players, like player 3 and player 4 are going to kind of be forced into an investor strategy. Like you can only start 2 companies, which I actually think is really cool because the investor strategy, you don't get to lay tracks, but you get to have fun in a different way, which I think is really, really cool. So it's one I'm 100% keeping an eye out for. It's on 18xx.games. I want to play it very soon. And it just seems like a really fun dynamic. It's also proof that like as much as we say, oh, Railways of the Lost Atlas sometimes feels like you could just have that and have like an infinite number of experiences with it. It just shows that these games, there's so many different versions and tweaks that like I kind of want to play them all.
Even just a few small changes makes for a radically different experience. Totally. And that's pretty amazing.
So the takeaway, though, is basically that I'm a bad friend.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, always.
Carb or no carbs.
I mean, we were going to say that Lost Atlas is a great game. That's the takeaway. But the undercurrent of everything we talk about is that Paul's a bad friend.
I want to talk about, because now we're at the 1 hour mark, so we should go into review. I just wanted to mention 2 things really quickly.
Sure.
Two games. First is I played Kutna Hora again about a week ago, and I just want to say Kutna Hora is amazing. This game is so amazing, and every time I play it, I'm so impressed with its design. And I think like I don't know, I just felt so compelled to just sort of like reassert that on the podcast.
Yeah. No, I may be part of the problem because
what?
I respect the heck out of the design. I think it's like kind of an amazing design. And yet for some reason, I'm a little meh on it, and I don't know why. There's like nothing tangible to the game that says anything other than Tom should love this. Tom should absolutely love this. And I have liked both plays. I never had a bad play of it.
Let me ask you this: when you played it, did you play the mines?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem.
I kind of want to explore the mines, but I think I had such a fun time playing it. I played it with my friend Brendan, James, friend of the podcast, James, and James's fiance Jill, and Jill beat us all, which I loved because James is like a microchip.
Apparently with ham.
With ham, she leaned into the ham strategy, but
I think the mines is the least interesting part of the game.
I agree.
I think to use Ben's parlance, it's the siren song. It's like
But here's the thing though, I just every time I play Kutna Hora, I'm like, this game is so good. And so I went on to BGG, and someone has gone and written a strategy guide for every guild you can play in the game. And reading those strategy guides got me so excited. I was like, there is so much in this game.
Yeah.
And there's, I'm HOTTOGO. There's so much. And they talk about the mines. And I think that we, as a group, we play the mines wrong.
Okay,
I think that we go into the mines thinking like, okay, got to go for those like stars and area control. But mines are really like, if people are not building, if the wood guilds are keeping the price of wood high, and it's hard to you go into the mines and you can actually get easy income. And so the mine is supposed to be an alternative to
imbalances
guild,
in the market.
And so it's like looking at it not as area control, look at it as like, okay, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to get my income up, and that's going to force the wood guild to have to react. And like everything is like that. It's a great game. So I just wanted to give it
I've only played it like 5 times, so I'm ready to play it a lot more, especially on your recommendation.
It's like it's kind of becoming like I will play it anytime game.
Great.
Also, the other thing I wanted to mention was I had to mention this experience I had playing Things in Rings.
Okay. We're listening, I think. Kind of.
People don't see this, but I'm taking my 2 hands and I'm putting them in front of me. That way of like, guys, I have some bad news to tell you.
It's the getting ready to clap it out.
This is I'm gonna okay. When on the last podcast, I think was the last one our COVID podcast.
I think so, maybe. Yeah, sure. Why not?
I played Things in Rings for the first time with you and Matt and Jordan, and I was like, wow, this game is great.
It is.
It's great. So a week later, played Things in Rings. Brendan, my boyfriend Dom, and my friend Daria. And Dom loves a word game, and Daria loves this sort of stuff. So like this will be great. So round 1, Things in Rings, for people who don't know, you got to set up a Venn diagram. There's like a knower who knows what each circle is, but the other people don't know. So they're putting cards that are words into different circles, hoping they get them in the right place. And so the first round goes, it's really good. And so then now I become the knower, and the circles are words that are 5 letters or less. The objects that are often striped or dotted, and then the context is useful. So when I saw useful, I was like, this is going to be bad.
That's a tough one.
Because it's fun. In some ways, it's fun. It's like, oh, is a frog useful? Like, yes, it's part of nature and it's part of the animal chain, but is it useful? And so it's fun for me because I have to figure that out.
Right.
But what happened was card after card after card started going down. And something that I found in my first play and then repeated here is that sometimes if it's not clicking, at a certain point, there's so many cards, your brain stops deducing. There's too much input. Yeah. And then you're just guessing. And they were doing it and they were guessing. And they got to the point where they were no longer deducing. They were just guessing, but they couldn't guess. Like the guessing wasn't working and it was going on and on, and it went on and on. And finally they just like, we're not going to play another card. We will not do this anymore. And I revealed it and they were like, great. I never want to play. They hated it. It was a flop. And it actually made me not like the game because I was like, if this is a game that's like I just played a game that sent some people almost away from gaming a little bit. And I don't like that. If a game does that, I don't like that.
Brittle, right?
And so
a brittle game. And in certain situations, it'll be a total flop. That's a dangerous thing for a party/word game, right?
There needs to be, I almost feel like there needs to be like a ticking clock. Like you can only put in so many words. And then if it's not done by a certain time, like maybe the knower loses or something. But I was like, it was a real bummer.
It was what was really weird was like I got a text from Brendan saying like, "Hey Ben, I think you need to end the game right now. It's gone too long."
Yeah.
And I was gonna forward to you, but I go no.
I should have just or maybe like there should be an awareness that like and if you're the knower and you see it's going down that path, just end it, because it's better just to be like, oh well, than to like have people get frustrated.
It's an easy fix.
It just made
a rule
it,
fix.
Yeah, it made the game feel stupid to them. Like this is just a stupid exercise.
Sure.
So that was a bummer.
Bummer. It's still a good game. I think like there are some rules, especially in the context, that are like for when we played, it was like is within 100 miles.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, and so like maybe it's a sword within 100 miles of here. it was like one of those things where like, well, I guess there's no.
It's LA. Almost everything is within 100 miles.
Yeah,
maybe it's no pelicans in 100. I don't like so. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, anyway, that was my experience with it. I just, I'll play it. I'll still play it. I enjoy it, but I think that like I was like, I know I'm not going to buy this because I know there's at least 2 people outside of Game Brain who will never play it and will actually make people not want to play it.
It's a major bummer.
Yeah.
But you know what's not a major bummer, Ben?
Windmills.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking. How did you know what I was thinking?
I was going to say valleys. I'm mad on windmills, but I love
some
valleys.
Some people would say a valley is a bummer.
Let's be clear. That place, Amsterdam, Netherlands, is
Holland.
so flat.
How flat is it?
It is so flat that you can put a basketball anywhere in that entire country and it will not roll. That thing is flat. So to call something a valley, I don't know if they have an actual valley.
I actually agree with this. I was thinking about this. Like, where are the high parts to make the valley?
It's 10 feet versus 10 feet under the,
it should be called
below sea level.
Windmill Flat Place.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Well, that's valley
windmill
is in Dutch.
Exactly.
Dutch translate.
The only place that has actual hills is the Gelderland, which is the easternmost part of the Netherlands and right abutting Germany.
And if anyone has played Pandemic Rising Tide, you might know this because it's a game about flooding in the Netherlands, and that's one of the areas that's dry.
There you go.
That's, by the way, my favorite Pandemic, although I've not played Pandemic Legacy, but that's just a little. That's the Splotter Pandemic, that Joris, or not Joris, I think actually Euron designed. So,
yeah,
just a little something there for everyone who wants some Splotter in their Pandemic.
It's some good stuff. And by the way, the Gelderland is absolutely gorgeous. The Arnhem and all those little cities are.
Oh, I was worried there might be a part of Amsterdam or Holland that might be disgusting. So I'm glad that it's all gorgeous.
No, it's actually really nice.
It's like, guys, I've got some breaking news.
That's right.
Some of the Netherlands is beautiful.
Well, it's far enough inland that it sometimes gets sun.
Yeah,
because the Netherlands, it's Seattle. It's gray all the time.
No, not all the time.
I have never been as cold as I've been in the Netherlands, and it wasn't even that cold. But I was in Amsterdam.
The wet gets into you, doesn't it?
It was weird. Like I was walking, I was like, "Oh, I'm about to die." I'm a bit dramatic. It's like someone like shot me with like a freezer. It's like, oh, this is what the Flash must feel like when he's. I was like, if I don't get inside, I'm not going to make it. And it wasn't that cold.
Well, I was there 2 months ago, I guess 3 months ago now, and it was sunny and delightful.
Summer. Beautiful.
I was,
Summer. You get
I got some herring.
Nice.
I love some herring. Anyway.
Pofitias. These tiny little pancakes, these little pancakes the size of a dime are the most delicious things in the world.
Yeah, I loved the food there. Anyway, Windmill Valley is by Danny Garcia, designed by Danny Garcia. Art is by Pedro Codecho maybe, and Zbigniew Gelter.
Sure, of course. No, naturally. Yeah. I mean, all of these classic Dutch names.
It's a game wherein we are in the fabled Windmill Valley. Perhaps the
City Valley.
Hence fabled.
Windmill flat place. We are all, I guess, just people in the valley trying to grow some tulips, and we we all have these fun player boards that represent a windmill that's also pumping out water from the lowlands. And so gears. So what we're really looking at, we're actually looking at the back. We're looking at the butt of the windmill. You see, like, if you look at the player board, you see like a hint of windmill blades in the background, but we're really looking at the gears in the back. And those gears, Zolkin-esque, are going to determine our actions. They're basically like two little rondelles that are geared into each other. And every turn, we're going to rotate the big gear, 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 spots to an action. And that will rotate the small gear that's in mesh with it. And then as those gears line up, you will choose between an action between both wheels. Or if you've upgraded one of the wheels, you might even be able to do 2 actions. That is kind of like the big shtick of the game. And then there's other things you can do. You can build windmills, because it is Windmill Valley, onto this big, colorful board. And you place windmills out. And then maybe if Paul's placed a windmill, he's established a windmill network. So maybe I build a windmill also. And then Paul gets a point because I added on to his windmill network.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You will also acquire, importantly, tulip bulbs. And then you will plant the tulip bulbs on your player board and get bonuses and points. And you will you'll upgrade your wheels, as I mentioned before, or actually your gears. And you will also get cards, which can either be helpers, that give you ongoing powers, or they could be contracts that give you
scoring at the end of the game.
Actually, not even contracts, but they're end game scoring. And then there's like a shipping thing where you can send tulips off to foreign lands and get things in return. And that's really it. I mean, there's some stuff about like, if you make a full cycle of your gear, you get to move up on this one track and you get bonuses. But basically, you're building windmills, you're planting tulips, you're going to a market, you're getting more tulips, you're getting helpers, you're upgrading your wheels, and you're just like enjoying the Dutch countryside, right?
Yeah. And that's a wrap, guys. That's
Thank you everyone for being here.
The board is beautiful.
Yes. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me what you think about the art, the presentation of this game, Tom.
It is brighter than the usual pastoral Euro game, right? There's we've seen a million Agricolas, we've seen Lowlands. They're all kind of this general, fairly realistic green, because tulips are so abnormally bright and colorful and beautiful. And when you drive through a not a valley, but a part of land that is a tiny bit lower,
should have been called Windmill Meadow.
Yes, probably.
Yeah. Paul,
when you see these things,
can you co-sign that? Windmill Meadow.
I think Valley.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
He's a monster.
Why are you looking at him for help? Have you not realized yet that he will not help you?
What did you just text me, Ben? I'm not sure.
Okay, sorry. Go on. So the tulips are abnormally bright.
They're abnormally bright, and the board is vivid as well. The board,
it's almost like Disney colors.
Yes.
Right. It doesn't look like Disney, but it's almost like the palette you would see on like a Cinderella or.
And by the way,
right.
The country doesn't just have that; they have fields of heather that are bright yellow, like glowing yellow, that you can see for miles before you get up to it. So it is a very colorful landscape. And the board is, I would say the board and your own board and the cards are all a little brighter, a little more almost kid colored.
Yeah. It's actually the board is surprisingly large. Some would say it's actually too big. I actually like that it's just like a big board that you can really see everything on. I guess apparently because I can't see things anymore. But it really is like it's everything's very clear. The board could have been more compressed, but I like that they said, no, we want to put this big colorful presence on the table here. I think it's very inviting. Yeah. And I think because the theme is like tulips and windmills and Amsterdam, there's something very evocative and whimsical, and meadows that I think they want this game to draw people in. And so I actually think that's a good choice. And I think, by the way, the iconography I feel like is very strong in this game.
Yeah, simple to understand.
It's almost there's a relatively small set of icons. There's every now and then there's like a funky one on some of like the upgrades, but I think that they're very easy to digest, you know? So I think it's a very like visually accessible and inviting game. Rulebook, I think rulebook is generally pretty good. We had some rules goofs, but like they were easily fixed by finding the answer in the rule book. There were one or two questions I had online that I had to go BGG to, but
Yeah, a market movement is one of those things.
It's a little funky.
Yeah, it's a little.
it's not hard. It's just it's somehow hard to describe. You have to move your thing around, but you can move a neutral token first. And
Well, I think the fact that you have the option to do this or this or this kind of in that makes it a little more complicated than it needs to be. It's really just what 3 spaces that you're moving around in between, or maybe
yeah,
4.
there's 3 spaces, but you usually are going to move 2 spaces in this market section of the board, and wherever you and the places that you go to in the market, you get to basically acquire tulips or plant tulips, but you can do some manipulation. And the number of things you can do in those markets is multiplied by the people who are already there. So there's just sort of like a fussiness in when you try to describe it, but in execution, it's very simple.
Yeah. Everything in the game is pretty simple. Like the individual actions are all very clear. You know exactly what you're doing. They're thematic in the sense that you know exactly what this is that you're doing.
This is like a full on. Would you agree, Paul? This is like a right down the middle, like midweight game.
Oh,
midweight
totally.
light. It's not light. It's not light. It's midweight.
Like, what would you? I early on associated with Wingspan. What would you say? Wingspan's a midweight Euro?
Yeah, I think that Wingspan is like a little bit more accessible. But again, I wonder if that because people, it's inviting, it's colorful, birds are fun, that people are just more open to learning the rules. But it could be in that Wingspan area.
I played it. I go, like my first reaction is like, this can draw in a lot of people. Not like whiskey.
Right. Yeah. No, it can, because the thing is that like a lot of games in the board gaming world, a lot of them have historical themes or sci-fi or fantasy. And the truth is that like those themes have their audiences, but like I think there are a lot of people that are drawn into themes that they can relate to, or like that are aspirational, like going to visit Amsterdam.
Like
You're not going to have to deal out 30 cards hoping people figure out what the 2 circles are. You are not going to be in a situation where you're relying on Paul to say, hey, how about we start the game over again?
Yeah.
You know, because
don't rely on that.
no, you're not going to have to rely on that in this game, you know?
There's also the tactile joy of rotating your gear.
100%.
That like that sometimes these games really benefit from like an element of play, and like to be able to rotate those gears, and they rotate so smoothly and so cleanly, and they're built sturdily. Like it's not like a oh my god, or like it's like
triple weight
they're
cardboard.
Beautiful things, and they move quickly and easily that you feel the ridges of the gears on your fingers. I think the wheels are probably like the defining feature of this game.
Sure.
And I feel like I would love to talk some more about the wheels and how, like, do you feel the wheels are a satisfying mechanic, or are they a gimmick?
All right. So I'm going to ask a question first, because I have not played this game with the Game Breaker, and this game needs plays from the Game Breaker.
Hey, it's me.
Paul,
That's you, Paul.
did you explore the rush strategy in this game yet?
I have not. I think I'm usually in mid pack or last.
And wait, let me just describe what the rush strategy is really quickly, which is that
If there even is one in this game, but theoretically there is.
One thing we did not mention is that at the start of your turn, before you rotate your wheel, the number of turns you can make with your gear, I should say, is going to be dictated by the floodgates in the country. So at the start of the turn, if the floodgate is at 0, then you're going to move your gear 1 notch, and you'll do the next action that comes up on your gear. But if you can pay a coin to raise it, open up the floodgates a little bit, in which case you're going to move your gear 2 spots, and you also get a point for doing that. Or you can even throw more money at it and
2
rotate
more coins, and then it goes 2 more spaces.
Yes. So you can basically go up to 3 spots, and then there's things called tools, which allow you to rotate your wheel like up to 4 times. So basically, you can spend money and do big rotations, and then get points for doing that. And then when you do a full rotation, you get bonuses that are really good bonuses, and they are also dwindling bonuses. If you're the last one to get there, you're going to get the fewest bonuses out of everyone at the table.
And it's the timer of the game.
And it's the timer of the game.
5 or 6 rotations, the game ends.
Yeah, I think it's even less than that. I think it's like 5.
It's right.
No, but in terms of like your big wheel, if your big wheel rotates, goes through 4 times.
It's like the big wheel 6.
5 times.
It's
4 or
6.
5 times.
No, but in terms of like there's a red spoke on the big wheel, and when that comes all the way around,
You're
then
into the next section of the game.
right. And I think there are 4 columns, and the fifth one, when you do it a fifth row, when
That's
you've
right,
rotated
that's the one,
5 times, you've now started the end of the game.
Like, you could end the game in 8 turns. Like if
Yeah.
you keep on doing 3s and you add a tool here and there.
You could.
Yeah, like I don't think that's actually in the spirit of the game, but more than that, like I think that if you wind up doing that, like I think what happens is you can't build an engine, that even someone with a piddly engine, in 8 turns.
That's kind of where I'm at, which is that the first thing that happens in the turn is you adjust the water flow, right? And if that is a mechanic that the game has but doesn't really support, that might be a little bit of a problem.
It feels a little underused.
If we haven't explored that strategy, right? Because the reality is that so many of the places on those gears you want to do. It's a process game, right? Well, so place if I skipped the very first play, I skipped over the first place a windmill.
Yeah.
And I realized quite quickly that, that really, really affects and really destroys my ability to place things on this map. There are some very important things that these windmills do.
Yeah.
They unlock points in a variety of different ways.
They unlock points. They give you basically 2 to 3 actions when you place them.
Correct. But a lot of the game is going to be about acquiring tulips, placing tulips on your personal board. And if you have not gotten rid of the windmills on your personal board, you're not going to score those. Those are not going to score the big points that you want them to score. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on. And since that is a big part of the scoring of the game, you have to place as many windmills as you can. So you have to stop on windmills. You have to plant bulbs and get bulbs. Those are places that you're going to have to stop. So to do a rush game,
I agree.
Yeah.
The first game that I played was with Paul and Jordan, and that game went quickly. Like we weren't even trying to do a rush strategy, but for whatever reason, we were all kind of like the floodgates were open and it was moving, and the other thing that happens is when you open up the floodgates, the water in the land goes up. There's like the thing that ticks the water level, and it can go up to like 8. So like if the floodgate is all the way up, then the water levels goes up by 2. And so if the water level ever reaches 8, you actually have to close the floodgate, which means that you were forced to slow down. And I found in the game that I played with you and Jordan, Paul, that the floodwaters very frequently were actually all the way up at the top, and we had to slow down. I was like, oh my God, someone lower the water. So that way, like I need to take a bigger turn, but I don't want to waste it on lowering water. And so that game went really quickly. I feel like that was a 90-minute game. Whereas then the next game I played with James and Brendan, and everyone was just going one at a time, one, and very rarely would use it. And that game wound up being twice as long. But then everyone got to do everything that I planted a flower in I filled up my entire board, which was unheard of.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting to me, I think you're right. It's like you have to stop and do these things because you're not going to score points. But it's really important to go fast and get those bonuses because
they're good.
Because if you can do your shit faster than someone else, you want to make sure you then are like, let's get this game over. So I think that I can't tell if it's a feature or a flaw, because on one hand, it feels like the ability to manipulate the water flow should feel very dynamic, and it should feel like it's constantly going up and down, and like every time I go fast, I'm creating an amazing opportunity for someone else or something. And I don't always feel that way, but there is a huge tension for me between like I really need to pick up my pace, but I want to stop and take that spot. I want to go only one notch.
I'm not sure the bonuses are worth the skipping spaces. That's, I think, my main worry. Now, as far as the water level going up, there is tangible rewards for taking
Yeah.
a turn to lower that water.
And we played it wrong, actually. For the majority of our gameplays, we thought it was that when you lower the water, you only get like 1 or 2 coins. We didn't realize that was multiplied by the strength of your water dropping, which is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Money is very tight in the early game. Until you upgrade your personal wheel to, let's say that there are 3 types of upgrades that you can do on your wheels. You have 2 wheels. They're geared together, 2 gears. You can do basic upgrades, middle level upgrades, and unique upgrades, basically, is what it is. The unique upgrades tend to be the things which allow you to do both things on the wheel. They allow you to take 2 actions per turn instead of 1.
Yeah.
But a lot of the upgrades involve take this action and get 2 gilder. Take this action and get 3 gilder, 1 gilder, or per, which is very, very important because it is hard to get money in the game, and most of the things that you want to do in the game require money, or the best outcome of the action is to add money into it to get a better reaction, right?
Right. And I think the building of your wheel is a really chunky part of the game, and for me, it's not so much the order in which I put my upgrades because you have the big wheel and a small wheel. Like the sequencing of those upgrades, you kind of almost can't predict. Like, oh, I need to put this here so it hits at this time, whatever. But I think it's which wheel do you put it on? What spot do you put it on? What type of upgrade do you put it on? Because I think that there's a lot of decisions there. You could take let's say there's a build a windmill action on your wheel inherently, and then you get an upgrade that says build a windmill and get a coin for it. So it's a better version of it.
Did we mention that like you can adjust your actions? I don't know what we said.
I mentioned we could upgrade, but I don't think I really articulated. But basically, it's an action to put a piece on your windmill that upgrades. It makes it better.
And 1 gear starts off with all of the basic actions on it.
Yeah.
And 1 gear starts with all lower the water.
The small one, the only thing you do on the small one is just lower the water level and get rewards when you do that. And
so why it seems most of the time when you're adding tiles, the first thing you're doing is you're adding them to the wheel that only lowers the water, right?
Right. It seems more inviting. And normally, like, you could do a strategy where you say, I'm going to put like really good ones on the small wheel. So that way, every time I do a main action, I'm going to get kind of like an ancillary side action too. I played around in the last game with putting upgraded basic actions on the small wheel, because since it's a smaller wheel, those actions would cycle through faster. And so that way I was getting these good actions and getting them more frequently. And that was a really fun thing to try.
It was amazing. It almost won.
It almost won, except I pointed out to Paul that there was a 19-point play he could use, and he used it, and I lost by 3 points.
Ben, you're a really good friend. How does it feel when that's never reciprocated?
Well, some may argue the other way, like the time I said, hey, Paul, you know what you could do? You could just dump your company on Jordan. I unfortunately have this a bit, like, if I see something, I can't help but blurt it out. And
I think that's the best way to play.
It's super endearing.
Thank you.
I think it's
but also, to be fair, I had messed up something. Like, I could have put a windmill in a more optimal place. I could have also, I misunderstood one of my end game scoring things. So, like, important to note that this game can come down to just 3 points. You can get scores that are in the 200s, and it can come down to 3 points. So, like, every point really does matter in this game.
And to zag a little bit, like, I won the last game that we played, and I only upgraded 4 times.
Right.
Like so there's a lot of variety in how you choose to play.
Exactly. Yeah. But just going back to the upgrading thing, I think it's really cool. Well, I guess what I'm trying to get to is I love actually how deep the upgrading system in terms of the choices are. Like, because you think, like, let's say I have an upgraded version of building windmill again. I could either put that on my basic windmill thing, so that way I am not blocking out something else, and it's just like, oh, now when I do my windmill, it's better. Or maybe I say, I don't want to do shipping, so I'm just going to cover up shipping, and now I have 2 windmill actions on my big wheel. Or maybe I put it on the little wheel, and now I have shipping on the right, shipping on the left, and one on the right shows up. Like, there's like so many interesting decisions in just how you build out your wheels and then using them, which is really fascinating. But also, it does put you in a mindset that, like, well, I can't go too fast with I can't rush this because I'm investing time into this wheel.
Which creates this drag where one of the main mechanisms of the game isn't really being used by people, or the game seems to fight against the move the wheel fast thing because the rewards
is it that
quickly
it's not
outweigh.
being used? But if the pressure is on you to say, I really need to speed up, but I can't, I want to do this thing, you could make an argument that mechanic actually is being used because it's creating a pressure on your decision space.
I mean, if it is, my gut, I've only played it a couple times, so I don't really know, but I get the feeling that the rewards for going slowly outweigh the rewards for going fast a little bit. Like the getting
tricky. I don't know.
Placements. I don't know.
I feel like I totally agree with you and disagree with you all at the same time.
Okay,
Totally disagree and agree.
Yeah.
I've played the faster strategy and I've played the slower strategy, and like they both can win. Like it really comes down to context of what other people are doing.
I mean, the fast strategy would be, to me, committing completely to it. So find a way to earn money.
Yeah.
So that you can constantly be moving the water level up and jumping on that. But then what you're really doing is you're creating a game in which everyone else is
setting up their scoring,
trying to build up an engine, but you're going to make sure that there is not enough time for them to build up that engine. You know you're not going to be able to build up that engine, so you're looking for the drib and drab scoring of the in-game
and that's
scoring.
the tension of it, and it's actually very reminiscent of Lowlands, another Dutch themed game.
It is.
Where Lowlands, you're saying like, I want to work on building it. I want to grow all my sheep because the sheep are going to be worth so many points. But if you don't help in building the dike in the center of the town, then the flood will come and kill all your points. And then whoever works the most on the dike is going to get all these points. But if you work too much on the dike, then everyone will be like, oh, that's great. Ben's working on the dike. I'm going to grow my sheep. So there's sort of there's a little bit of that tension in that mechanic that I really like. But I also agree that like I kind of want to see that floodgate going up and down more frequently.
Yeah, and I think what Paul said is right, which is that the fast movement almost feels like it's against the spirit of the game, and that's where the problem really comes in.
I don't think it's against the spirit of the game, though, because
I'm saying what Paul said. I didn't say.
You're not. I'm sorry, Tom.
Let me
get out on you.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's against the spirit of the game, because I think the spirit of the game is like, how do I use tempo to my benefit? And so if it's a slow tempo, then that's what the spirit is. If it's a fast tempo, that's what the spirit is. But I think what happens is that what we see a system where we can raise that water level and we'll get some points for it, but it seems like we're creating an amazing opportunity for someone else. And so it feels like there's going to be this very dynamic game of like everything I do, someone else benefits off of, which actually is there, but it's not a game where that thing's going up and down. But again, I don't want to say it's not that, because the first play it was. And so I know I've had experience with that.
Let me put it in a slightly different context. And then Paul, I want to hear from you. It's because you can move the game along faster. It's as though you were playing a game of Agricola where you can force the game to end on round 10 instead of round 15.
Mm-hmm. And the spirit feels like you should be able to do all 15.
It doesn't feel good to have a half completed farm. And it doesn't feel good in this game to have one row of tulips and 4 rows that are uncompleted. You know what I mean?
Right.
And to have very few windmills out on the board because the game was raced to an end.
Right. And
so I think the game kind of like
dissuades
dissuades you from it.
Yes, but I also feel that way about Great Western Trail, believe it or not. Like I feel like the meta on Great Western Trail is go fast, and I'm always like, but I love this game. I love all these action. I want to just sit. I want to do everything. Why are you guys going so fast?
Like, you can rush Great Western Trail and lose.
Yeah.
And I feel like with this game, like I actually don't think you can rush it just from a logistics standpoint, because it costs money.
Yeah,
like
that's the thing.
The only way that it really gets rushed is like if somehow you have a tool engine and you leave it at 3. And no one else, but then everyone is complicit in the rush strategy. Mm-hmm. So in that way, like I don't like. Ultimately, it comes down to like the way that I would see it is, you break it, put up to 3, and then you get 4 points, and then someone brings it down to 0, and then you have the opportunity to keep on doing that, except for the fact that like money is so tight. Money is, and I don't know how you can get money and continue to do that.
I think you build an engine because in my first game I had a money engine.
But then if you're building an engine, then you're not rushing.
No, but if your first couple actions are to take wheel pieces and you're getting wheel pieces that are giving you 3 guilders or something like that,
but those don't exist.
Well, so one thing that's fun about the game also is that I think that one of the interesting puzzle of the game is like, which reminds me of, oddly enough, of Inventions. Am I allowed to mention Vital Lacerda in the same review as Windmill Valley?
They're basically the same game.
But like in Inventions, I remember like my one play, and you guys would talk about it a lot. It's like you don't want to just do the action you want to do. You do another action that links along to get you to it. So you want to maximize it. So like if you want to plant 2 bulbs, you can either take the plant 2 bulbs action, or you can put down a windmill that gives you access to the market, which at the market you can then go and plant those 2 bulbs. So you're sort of like getting more bang for your buck, right? And
like how it happened at the end of the last game.
Yeah,
for me,
that's so funny. That's right. You put your windmill in the spot that I realized I should have taken, and then I lost.
It was surprising.
The game.
Did I win that game?
I think I went bankrupt. I was eliminated out of it. But if you think about
noticing a theme?
So, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I wonder if you rush, like, it's like, yes, you might be passing the basic actions, but maybe you can create other opportunities to get what you need done in a sequence that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I don't know if the game needs that, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, is the variable water level and the variable speed of that merely to opportunistically grab the I've completed the round bonuses and then go right back to a nice slow pace?
And it might also be like, oh, if you want, it's like just classic rondel thing. Like, okay, you're allowed to go one spot, but if you want to go more than one spot, you have to pay, and we'll give you some points for it. But it also means you're going to give an opportunity for someone else to lower the water and get bonuses off it. So think about it. So it could be just as simple as that.
Like I love a tempo game because that's what, especially when I'm playing against Trey, because that's what I attack. Like I think Trey tends to go for longer, like end game score type things. And I go like, oh, the best way for me to do this is to like prevent him from maximizing that.
Right.
Yeah, Trey's an engine builder.
He is.
And you attack that with tempo.
And there are a lot of, I'm sorry, were you saying?
I was going to say like, and I found in this game, like you can do some of that. Like there was one time where I go like, oh, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to accelerate this. But the game doesn't speak to you to do that. It speaks to you actually to go like, oh, get the shit to build your flower bed. Right. that's what it's really geared to.
Yeah, there's one helper that does give you a benefit from opening up the floodgates, but it's not like you don't see that everywhere. Like I think if there were more helpers like that, it's saying, hey, like lean into this. It doesn't, but there is that whole section where you get bonuses for getting there first for completing a rotation of your wheel. So it is there, and those bonuses, it does feel like they're small, but when they kick in, they feel like a godsend every time for me.
They're not nothing. That's
like every time I'm like, I needed those 2 flowers because now I can plant them and now I can hit this thing, which gives me this bonus. So like they are important. And I think there are people online, there's a thread on BGG and there's some people in our Discord who are like, I just don't see the point of going fast. I'd rather it's just better. It's better for everyone at the table. Just go one step at a time. And some people say just, hey, I just go one step at a time until I get my mid-game goal, and then I just hit the gas and go. But I'm like, to me, that's not a negative. To me, that's saying like everyone needs to pay attention to what everyone else is doing because you don't know when someone's going to say, okay, I'm good to go. I'm going to hit the gas, right? Like to me, that actually means interaction.
But in practice, when you're within 3 of completing a rotation, I know that's a distinct possibility that you're going to do that. I can look at, I can see how much money you have.
Yeah.
And I can see whether or not that's something you can do.
Right.
And if you can, it's like, you know what I mean? It's not that difficult. The fact of the matter is that it is such a pleasant game on so many levels that you don't want to, you want to kind of live in the game. Yeah. I don't want to end Agricola on round 10. That's not pleasant. I want to buy my tulips. I want to grow them. I want to put out my windmills in this bucolic space and take these actions, and I want to,
But it might not always be smart for you to do that. So when I played the game with Brendan and James, and we really were just barely speeding it up, Brendan built this amazing engine. He had filled his wheels up with all these great upgrades. He was just like, he had a great upgrade that was giving him money, and he used that money to get more great upgrades, and he got a tile that got more upgrades. And it felt like every time it was his turn, he was doing something amazing. And we're like, oh my God, Brendan's going to kill us. Then he got the contract that rewarded him for great upgrades, which is why he was doing it. And then he scored that contract mid-game, and he got like 30 points. And then he did it again. I'm like, oh my God, he is destroying us. And in my mind, I was like, we have to speed up this game to stop him. But then I also thought, or maybe he should be the one to be speeding it up because he has a lead, and I'm going to use this time because I see he's not putting out windmills. So I used that time to put out windmills, and I built out my flower bed. And in the end, Brendan wound up in third place, and I wound up in first. And it was all because we were all sitting there working on our own little patch and doing our own little thing. Yeah. And really, at some point, Brendan should have said,
"Rush,
time to rush." So what I like about that is,
what's really funny was because like James sent me a text saying like Brendan, like Ben's he's in his feelings. Slow down.
Slow down. Ben needs this right now.
Ben has bankrupted in the last 3 games we played with him. Can we please give this guy a break?
So my question is, does this feel like interaction to you guys? Do you feel like this is an interactive game or no?
I mean, you know what I'm going to say. You already know what I'm going to say. I'm a huge player interaction guy. And when you take the rondel, the Zolkin comparison is interesting, but it's also the thing that for me makes it not my kind of game.
Zolkin for you, Zolkin or
no? Zolkin is my kind of game because the rondels the gears are on the board,
the communal,
and everybody can.
Right.
And what you do with the gears makes me cringe and makes me like, no. Here, everybody has their own sanitized gears. Nobody can
sanitized.
Nobody can affect my gears. And in fact, the number of
this is why you don't like Barrage, right?
Pardon me?
This is why you don't like Barrage.
It's not a major part. It's not a major part of Barrage. It's a timing mechanism, is all it really is in Barrage. Look, the more I'm working on my player board, the less I'm interacting with other people. That's just a natural thing. This has a beautiful player board. There's a lot of things going on that player board that is going to limit the amount of interaction with other players. The water level doesn't really affect other players because for free, anybody can reduce the water level down to 1.
The floodgate down to 1, but not the water. The water level is action.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm talking about the floodgate. I'm talking about the water pace is what I'm talking about. That can be reduced down to 1. The going to market, to some degree, where a person's discs tell you how many actions you're going to get at that space. But in practice, are people really moving those discs to make sure that you only take 1 action here versus 2 actions there? No, people are pretty much using the market for their own needs. It's not really blockable. And and I would say that the real place where there's a lot of player interaction is the map itself and where you're putting your windmills. As you said, that you had a windmill space that you wish that you would have placed on. That can make a fairly significant difference, but it's not.
It's not the interaction you were looking for.
No, it's not. That said, this is a midweight game, and a midweight game does not have to have a ton of player interaction. So while this is not my particular druthers, and while I would like to see more player interaction, I'm not sure a tulip growing game is where we want to have bloody noses all the time. So
I think that's exactly where you want to have the bloody nose. What do you think about the interaction in this, Paul?
I think we categorize interaction in a way that is probably a little too generalized. I think there are various types of interactions, and I think in what I might consider interactive, someone else might feel like is not a value in any way.
Right.
Like I talk about things I really like is above the board play.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I take it back. No, this has a lot of above the board play. Like if you watch what people are doing and stuff like that. I absolutely see what Tom is saying. And I agree that like like my pieces actually don't interact with your pieces that often, aside from a windmill denial.
Yeah.
Right.
There are various races. There's also a one big public goal that people are racing for to get 10 points,
And like you might take a tech tile that I want, or a contract, or a helper. But I look at that, and those are not how I enjoy interaction. I say that it is where like I get a lot of crap about it. It's like, I don't think Agricola is very interactive. And then everyone yells at me going like, but you can do this, you can do that, blah, blah, blah. But how is that so different than like all this stuff?
Right.
I can easily answer that, but but in the end, like, it's just how I'm defining what the interaction is. Like, I think sometimes like people like I know games where you play and no one talks.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, wow, that was a really interactive game. Paul prefers that.
Was it?
Yeah. I think maybe I agree. I've been actually thinking a lot about what it means to be interactive in a board game, because I feel like interactivity has become like kind of a buzzword, and I think it's sort of like now in that space where like, is this game balanced and is it interactive? It's this rubric that we're measuring games by, justifiably so, because I think interaction is really important in games. But I'm starting to sense that sometimes games are getting like, people are almost like they're really getting very intense about interaction, and it made me realize like, well, what actually is interaction? Because with this game, I actually do feel like it's very interactive, but it's not interactive like Rise and Fall, where it's like, oh, Dimitri just built a city and I'm trapped, and like I can't do something because you did something to me. Like, it's not direct interaction like that. But I've come to realize that for me, I'm kind of adjusting what I look for in interaction, and I'm with Paul in that I like a game that engenders above the table talk and laughter and table talk, and I think that games that are like directly interactive. We'll take it. Where like pieces do matter, 18xx, Rise and Fall, Arcs, or whatever. I think when that happens, there's a huge correlation between that sort of board interaction and then above the table interaction. There's usually like a laughter or whatever. So that's why I think we like those games so much, because it leads to the above the table talk. This is my theory, but I realized that a game can still generate that for me, interest in what other people are doing and what people are saying, without necessarily, it doesn't always have to be direct interaction for me. And so for a game like this, I spent a lot of time looking at what other people's wheels are, what people are.
Because I don't.
I spent all of the last 2 or 3 games seeing what actions are coming up on people's wheels.
Interesting.
Look at the results.
Yeah, but looking to see how much time do I have before this or that? Like, what is the likelihood that they might take this? Can I leave that helper in the market? Do I feel safe that I can leave that helper in the market and be able to come back to it on my next turn? I was paying attention to a lot of stuff. And the tempo thing, I'm sorry, real quickly, how much time do I have to go slowly? Like, can I speed up now? Should I speed up now? Trey is building something over there. I think I have to, like, do I go for this little goal I'm going for here, or do I speed it up so that way I throw him off his game?
Like what you're describing to me, like, sounds the way that people say, this is why Agricola is interactive.
Yeah.
So in that way, if Tom thinks Agricola is interactive and you are describing what I've been told that Agricola is, why
Agricola, because Agricola has worker placement, and so if someone takes a spot that Tom wants,
so
he can't take it. So
it's just denial.
On each turn,
there's a little bit more. There's a bit more of a choke point in terms of like. Yeah.
So if what I do affects your choices, then that's much more interactive.
But that's exactly.
And I'm not saying this is the most interactive game.
Like in our game, like that happened all the time. Like, you're building a strategy, someone takes the card that you want. You're building a strategy. Oh, someone takes the tile that you want.
But like, you know what it is? It's like if someone takes a tile or a helper, you can still take that action and do something else. Whereas in Agricola, if someone like takes the baby making spot, you're like, oh well, I guess I'm not making.
Well, like someone I'm
not doing this action.
When somebody takes the market, The most you're going to do to me if I take the market right after you is plus or minus 1 tulip or something along those lines.
Well, no, but there's also like, if someone takes the tech that is my windmill that I need, like, and I have no guarantee that another windmill will come up.
And by the way, there was some other, just like there are things like the game I played earlier this week with Trey and Stacy and John. We had a race for the first person to get to 6 tools would get 10 points. And I'm telling you, I was watching every single thing that Trey was doing like a hawk. I was on the edge of my seat because I was like, I need to do this. And like, I was really invested. But like, again, I'm not saying that this is interactive the way Barrage is interactive or Brass, but I do think that there is interaction here. And I am really invested when I play it. I've been really invested in what other people have been doing. There's also this shipping, mentioned very briefly, this shipping action where you can put a tulip onto a card and basically get 2 actions out of it. But it can't be a tulip color that's already there. So there's like an element, there's like little things like that where you say, okay, well, Paul has a bunch of red tulips, so let me put a red tulip on here so that way it's harder for Paul to do this action, So there's like considerations.
These are all interactions, no question about it. But they're all relatively low level
interactions. It's not sort of like the board interaction that you're looking for. Board placement or board presence.
Let me tell you a rules tweak that would immediately change the nature of the level of interaction in this game. If you had to pay to close the floodgates, the same way you have to pay to open the floodgates, boy oh boy do we have a new game.
I agree, but maybe you pay with victory points and get money instead. Maybe it's like it goes up. Yeah. You pay money and you get points to bring it up, but you have to pay points and,
to give those up.
It might actually go too fast. Maybe you need to add another round.
Yeah, I'm just saying that then the decisions that I make, right, because the pace of the water means nothing to you. What I do with the pace of the water means nothing to you because
I like
you always bring it down to 0.
Because now it's like, oh man, now I can't do my action. I guarantee they probably tried that, and then the people found it was like maybe frustrating.
And guess what? For a lighter midweight game, I mean, Paul was mentioning Wingspan. I think that's fair, right?
Right.
For a lighter midweight game, that's probably not the right level of interaction, right? That's not because that comes to bad feelings quickly.
There are a lot of things in this game that really hint at like what feels like should be larger interaction that they don't play out as excitingly. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. Like I imagine, like when I read the rules, it seemed like there was a lot of shared incentives in this game that don't totally pop the way I think that they seem like they might, because like the shipping action, you can put tulips on there to get those actions, or alternatively, you can just take all the tulips that are on that card into your little garden box. So there's this idea of like, oh yeah, do the shipping action because now I'm going to go next, like sort of Concordia style, and scoop up all the bulbs. Yeah. But in practice, though, it didn't really happen. And there is this element of like, okay, Paul puts a windmill here, and it's like he might court me to put a windmill on his network so he gets points. And I've definitely tried to get people to do that. And that does happen. And Paul got actually a bunch of points from me in the last game. No, it was like 6 points. No, 8 points we calculated.
Great.
So like you get points, but I think the game is trying to have this vibe of like everything you do creates an opportunity for someone else. And I love when games do that. But I think in execution, it doesn't totally
it's not
feel that way.
Because I'm changing the wheel on my own board and nobody can affect my own board. You can't affect the pace at which I turn. I can literally, once I start putting together the pieces of my board, I can plan out with roughly 80% accuracy what my next 4 actions are going to be, because there's not a ton that other people are going to be doing that is going to affect that.
And like maybe I also agree that it'd be nice if there was like a little bit of a payment, even if it's just a drop from like 1 to 0, and maybe it's free to go from 3 to 2, but maybe like you have to pay someone to go from or 2 to whatever, because it also would make the tools more important, because I found that the tools don't get used very often. I definitely, when I need them, they're great, but
they're not an essential.
Tools kind of like accumulate, and then at the end of the game you kind of like use them to sort of get to where you need to go.
I wonder if that will be different with more plays. I think what a lot, like I was doing that this time where I was going, oh, you know what? Even though I can spend this guilder to get 1 point and move it up, it's going to help everyone else. I have all these tools. Let's just get me what I need so that people don't benefit.
Right. I agree. I think there's probably some emergent strategy with the tools and with the wheel. I mean, there's a lot there. I think that also...
You did something I thought was really great.
What was
this last
that?
game where we moved 3 and you chose to go back 1. So
that way I wouldn't...
you wouldn't trigger.
Which was my mistake, actually.
100%.
Ultimately.
That's why I thought it was great, because I got to win because of that. But like, also, I thought it was a new thing that I hadn't seen before.
I also want to talk about the tulips, because one big part of the game is you're planting your tulips, and you're motivated to make 4 rows of like tulips, meaning like a row of red, a row of purple, a row of white, let's say.
5 rows, I believe.
No, it's actually only 4. There's 5 colors.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you can only do 4 rows. That's right.
I have a question for you guys, because I saw someone mention this in a criticism of the game. Are you afraid that because it's always going to be 4 rows, like it's always going to be like you choose a row and that's going to be the color for the row? Is there concern that the act of planting tulips could become samey because it's like there's no puzzle in how you place those tulips? Or does the game, or would a puzzle make that too much of a pain? Like a Sagrada type puzzle.
Judge it, yeah, but you have to judge it by the type of game you're playing. This is a lighter midweight game, really, from our perspective. Maybe for other people who are used to Ticket to Ride, this is a heavier midweight game. Whatever the case is, there, in Wingspan, there's only a certain number of bird cards, and you know what the general types of those bird cards are, and so you will have strategies that go that way. So yeah, it's going to be a little samey, but that's not a bad thing for the way it is. Like, I think to some degree, the criticisms that what we're talking about here is how to make this game heavier than what it should be to some degree, right?
I feel like it's like there might be some areas where like the game could like almost just be refined just a little touch where it could just get. We see areas where it's like, ooh, just make this little tweak and it could really sing in that area.
Yeah, a little bit more of a gamer's game, right? But the reality is that this would be a great game to move people up a notch. You know what I mean?
I think that there's more meat on the bones here than just like, and this is I think, by the way, this is one of the things that is tricky about midweight Euros these days. I feel like we start to talk about them like they're almost like I don't know, like that there's no meat on the, like that there is no meat, but there's actually a lot of meat on the bones in this game, I think. And I think there's a lot of strategy. And I think given that it gives us so many chunky decisions, it would be fun, I think, if the flower patch it wasn't so prescribed that like you basically just have to do like 4. But then again, it's thematically appropriate. That's how it would look, which I like. I would love to see an expansion for this game that maybe just mixes up how we plant our flowers, gives us different motivations.
Yep.
And also, I would love to see the shipping power boosted a little bit, because I find that in every game, people kind of ignore it. And I don't know if that's just because the meta isn't there for it, but
in one game I played with Elder, we did not ignore it. It was actually a fairly dynamic system that we were, placing tulips.
So maybe there's a way. I'm sorry to interrupt, but like maybe there's a way to maybe not boost it, but maybe. I love hearing that. That makes me really happy. But maybe something that inspires more people to engage with it. Yeah. So that way, it's really like like the prefect in Concordia. Like you either take the resources and leave money out there, or you take the money.
That's what it is. We were doing that. I mean, generally, people would clear it when there were 3 tulips on there, because 3 different kinds of tulips is not bad. Which I should bring this up, actually. Elder's the binge gamer. This is his new binge game. He's played it. Yeah. When I played it with him, he had played it 10 times, maybe 11, 12, something like that. There might be an issue with one of the starting cards.
Thank you for bringing. Is it about the market?
Yes, it is.
I've heard that. When I won with when I filled up my garden, I had that power.
I have, like I said, I've only played it a couple times. I've never seen the person who starts with the garden power lose.
I've seen it happen a few times.
Okay, but Elder has played it 10 times, and I believe he said that he has never seen it.
I was gonna say when I've seen it lose, it's been because newbies to the game who are just trying to figure out the game. But
Yeah.
I can see it being a really powerful one.
It really is. So for people that don't know what it is, the market is a very important part of the game because it is where people get the bulbs that they're going to plant. It's a major component of the game.
That's probably the best way to get bulbs.
Yes, it's not the only way by any stretch, but it is the primary way that you get bulbs. And the rule is that when you move your disc onto one of the market spaces, you can choose only one of the 3 or so rewards that are there. You can only do one of the 3 things. Mm-hmm. With this starting card, you now can take multiple of the things that are there. So I get 2 actions in this space. I can take a purple bulb and a red bulb.
Yeah.
Or I can take a lavender bulb and plant a white bulb. I can, it's that kind of action. And having that flexibility that you don't have to do just one thing is quite something. It really is.
Right.
And maybe a little overpowered.
And it does make me wonder that if someone has that, knowing that they could fill up their flower bed and get a huge amount of points, it does put pressure on the table to say, we actually should move this along before they get their flowers up and running.
It almost behooves everyone else to race the game, right? Because otherwise, this person's going to finish their... Yeah.
I think that...
do you go the other way? Because in both of the games I played, we were moving slowly enough that most people got to finish their board, and that kind of takes away from the advantage that player has to finish their board.
But then at the end, if everyone's going to sort of score it equally on those things, then you need to find a way to differentiate. What's the difference maker? And that's going to be the tempo. So
I've never finished my board.
I think it's not I don't think it's hard.
I like the fact that you sent me a pic of oh, I got my whole board. I go wow.
I don't think you're really supposed to.
Yeah. I was surprised.
And it's probably incorrect play, right? Because somebody should have been moving things along.
Yeah.
But except for that one card, except for the card that you start off with that garden advantage, the market advantage. That's huge.
The first 3 games I played this game 4 times this week, and the first 3 times I played it, to be fair, I played with a rule dreadfully wrong, which is that we played that when you lower the water, if you have something that says lower the water level in the country by 2, where the water level is, there's a reward that's attached to it. Yeah. And it's either going to be 2 coins and 2 points, or 1 coin and 1 point, or just 1 coin. I had played that when you lower the water level, you just get the coins, and but you actually multiply it by the strength of the action.
Yes.
So when you lower the water level, that's a real big way to get money in. And so when we played the game where I filled it all out, James had no money the entire game. He was struggling.
And if he would be super money poor if you played it that way.
And it slows down the game a lot. So if you have that money, it does literally grease the wheel. And so I don't know. I guess let's wrap it up, and I want to hear ultimately Paul.
Hey,
did you like this game? Was it fun? What do you stand on it?
I think it's great. I'll play it pretty much any time, but probably because of its length. Mm-hmm. It doesn't overstay. I can't imagine me feeling trapped in it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the edges that I tend to like that. Would be in something like
right. It does not have edges,
or for some reason, maybe it's because of the colors. I always think of the Estates, because Estates has very bright colors, and it's very
one has edges,
and it's very interactive in all. There's but in that way, I feel the States is actually pretty quick too.
Yeah,
and so I feel like it's a gentle game in that space. So I'll always play it. It's quick.
What do you think about it, Tom?
I think for me personally, I'm not in a stage right now where I'm trying to take light gamers and make them into medium gamers. I think the perfect spot for this is a great game for medium weight gamers. Mm-hmm. This is a great game for taking lighter gamers, casual gamers, people that are just getting into the hobby, and move them into a slightly meatier experience, because this is a good economic game. This is a good engine building game. Yeah. This is really solid in a lot of areas, and yet it is so clean and so it presents very well on the table. It's easy to understand what you're doing. It's a real good entree into what is going to be a deeper gaming experience, or a heavier game. Let's say heavier, because deeper is a little bit more of a value judgment. So I think it's a really good game in that sense. It's a very well made game. It's just not really for me, because that's not an agenda that I have a lot of a lot to do with. So for me, it's a game that I've enjoyed playing so far. I will probably play it another 3 or 4 times, and then I probably would only play it on a rare occasion when I have a group of people that's in exactly that situation. But but that, just because it's not directly for me doesn't mean I don't hold this game in fairly high esteem.
Yeah. And actually, I think it would be really good for your collection, because sometimes on your game night, you have some people who are not necessarily like hardcore gamers or anything, and that might be a good option. I think this is a great game. I really enjoy it. I enjoy what I feel like is a pretty elegant. It has a good amount of elegance. I think there's as very simple. Like, the pitch is very simple. I enjoy the tactile nature. I enjoy the whimsy of the theme. I enjoy the colors, the presentation. I enjoy moving the gears. I enjoy upgrading the gears. I think there's like surprising meat on the bones. I think the tempo is really interesting, and I think it's the tempo does not kick in the way that I thought it would, in terms of like the raising the floodgates, lowering the floodgates, and how that impacts the table. But it impacts it in that it adds a pressure and a tension to me when I play it, and for me, I am paying attention to what everyone's doing. And I think actually, because the game has a clarity about it, it's always very easy to know what people are working on. Like, there's not like a thicket of rules that you have to parse. Be like, I think they might be doing that. I'm not sure what they're going to do. I can just say, oh, Paul is going for that, or Paul needs that. And being able to see what people need augments interaction in my mind as well. And so I like that a lot. And also, every time I've played, I feel like there's been a lot of laughter at the table. There's been a lot of joking. There have been a lot of moments like, oh, there's like been, I saw Trey cracking up. That's always exciting when he's laughing.
Wait, Trey evinced joy in some form or fashion?
He was.
My goodness.
So I think that like I think it's a clever game. I think it's just like it's like pure midweight loveliness.
Yeah.
It's just I just feel like sometimes we're kind of losing sight of how wonderful a good midweight Euro can be.
There he is, Ben the centrist.
Here I am advocating. No, I think we really have. I think that we are right now in a moment where we're really prizing a game for being heavy, almost because it is heavy. And I love a heavy game. I really, really do. But I don't think that a heavy game means that's inherently better than a midweight game or even a light game. And I think that you disagree.
I mean, I don't think
it's
that's
just
true. I don't think
experience.
it's true for everybody, for sure. But I do think it is, like, at a certain point, there is a difficulty in creating a great heavyweight game that does not exist in the medium weight game or in the light.
There is a difficulty, but it doesn't make it better though.
Well, I'm saying that there's a higher bar for a game to a master. Like, I'm not sure they're midweight masterpieces in that sense. That's all I would say a little bit. That because it's so hard to create a great heavy game.
Castles of Burgundy, man.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. But that's in comparison to this, that's heavier than this.
Well,
right?
let me push back a little bit.
Sure.
Like, I think Avalon is my favorite game. Sorry, we know we're not supposed to mention this, and I feel like the rule set is very simple.
How did Avalon go yesterday for you?
It worked out very well.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It worked very well.
That's fantastic.
With that said, Avalon is not a heavy game. Like, the game, the rule set is very minimal.
Right. Sure.
And but I think I will be playing it forever. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very complex because of the emergent stuff. Like, I think so to put that, I would play Avalon almost name a heavy game that I would enjoy more than Avalon. I don't think I can name one.
Right.
And Democker. for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say demarker. Yeah.
Where's that rank? Like, in the BG, like
It is
It's
literally
number
game number.
-5. It's so high it went above
There we go.
1.
It is BGG game 01.
Yeah.
It is number 1.
not when it was rated.
But like I will say this. Like, I mean, look, I'm not gonna be like, hey, I'm like I'm not a snob or anything. Like, they're all great. No, I'm always gonna want to play a midweight or a heavyweight game over like a Sagrada, and I like Sagrada a lot. But like, I generally want crunchiness and chunkiness, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that like sometimes there's a sense like, oh, if a game is really heavy. If a game's not heavy enough, it's not worthwhile. It's almost, but it's like, no, this is like shows like the real joy and what's so wonderful about a midweight Euro is that you sit down and you have this wonderful like 90-minute, 2-hour experience. You joke with friends. You have a fun puzzle. There's just like it offers an experience that's unique to being a midweight Euro that I think is really wonderful and should not be discounted. I guess I should say.
Agreed. I use this analogy all the time where like I'm a person who is all about snooty food.
Yeah.
Like, give me a 25 course tasting menu. Blah. And I hang out with people who enjoy that too. But if they can't enjoy Popeye's fried chicken, I feel like there's
Something's broken in you.
Well, I think what happens is like there's a bunch of ego involved where you go, oh well, that's for the plebes. I go like,
Right.
No, Popeye's is delicious.
Delicious.
Like, and so you're putting this extra thing that is probably more internal than the actual evaluation of what the thing is.
Right.
And I suppose you could make an argument, or I've been told this argument that like, is it possible that just because the game is heavier, people put their ego and go, oh, well, I can understand this game. I can play this game. Therefore, it must be better.
Right.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put it in this term. Like I have basically said that this game is not for me, but this is a great game.
You enjoy it, yeah.
Because it's a great game. It really is.
Yeah.
It truly is. That said, when you mentioned Castles of Burgundy, I was like, well, that is also a midweight game. Why is that a game that is going to be on my shelf and Windmill Valley? Probably not. And for me, it's replayability is what it really comes down to. And early plays yet, I don't know for sure with Windmill Valley, but it feels to me like Windmill Valley, there are the various ways that you could play the game don't appear to be likely to blossom out into
And Castle of Burgundy is a class. I mean, it's classic for so many reasons. Like it's
everyone agrees, it's amazing.
That's amazing. It's clean.
Yeah.
It does what it does.
So
and
even in the
like,
midweight realm, it doesn't have to be a heavier game to be that way. But
yeah.
there are games that have built into just the way they're designed infinite replayability, and that for me is a mark that a light game can have infinite replayability or not. A midweight game can have infinite replayability and not, and so
I guess the challenge of a midweight game is that there's like sometimes we want like more from it. Like this is really cool, but like I want just a little bit more out of it. And
literally half of our review was talking about ways we could add more to it.
But sometimes sometimes we overlook the fact that there's actually there's a lot to be said from like a clean, mean machine that like gets out of the way so that way the players can interact with each other and joke and have fun.
Exactly.
I think the reason why I play midweight Euros is because it focuses a bit of my brain and I can talk about the game and life. Like if a light game ultimately doesn't scratch that part of my brain, and a heavy game requires more of my brain, then I can casually have a conversation about, so I think depending on what scratch you want to itch, but I think, I don't know. I think I lean more towards midweight now. I think heavier games I don't know if I I don't know if I need to sit and stare and and wait like 2 hours before I can have someone cry.
Yeah. I love a heavy game. Sometimes I feel like there's certain heavy games that are just like rules on rules on rules. And it's like, I learn the rules and it's fine, but I feel like sometimes it's rules for rules sake. It's almost like, look at this clever thing. And I'm like, sometimes like, okay, I guess sometimes it doesn't always capture my imagination in the same way because it's actually just like just
like last night.
bureaucracy.
Yeah, last night, Rise and Fall was going to be played. That's 4-player. We had 9 people, so we had to play a 5-player. So I said, okay, I'll take the 5-player crowd, and I brought out I brought out a bunch of games. But 2 of the games that I brought out were Genoa and El Grande, and one of the people playing, Nick, he's a general contractor. He is out in 105-degree weather, 100-degree weather, building homes right now. And he came to game night, and he was like, what is the game that is not going to kill me in terms of learning what I need to do to play the game?
Yeah.
And that's why those 2 were out there. Genoa and El Grande are probably not medium weight games. They're probably more medium heavy, right? They're significant games, but they're very easy to understand how to play. It's the play of the game that is the complex thing, not the learning of how to play the game, not the rules.
Right. Yeah.
So that's also a factor.
Yeah.
Those are the games that I gravitate back to again and again and again. I can teach this game to you in 7 to 10 minutes. And it is going to tax you in a very interesting and hopefully very rewarding way.
Exactly. And by the way, not for nothing, Windmill Valley, very easy to teach to people. People understand it, and it like clicks. Everything makes sense, which is a really nice perk.
Absolutely.
So I think either way. I think that like really fun game, midweight goodness.
Yeah.
Real, just a delight. And I'm really glad. To me, it actually lived up to the hype. I was a little worried.
Stare at the board in a completed game, and I dare you not to smile. There's these little windmills and this beautiful thing. Everybody's got their rows of their tulips, or not in the case of Paul.
Or you could just look at the 3 points that you lost by because you happened to tell Paul about the 19-point move he could have made when he was just about to give up and plant a single bulb.
But is that you or is that the game? I think that's more you.
My response to that is like, yep.
Yep, that sums it up. Okay, well, I think we've yammered on and on about these windmills, so let's wrap it up. You've been listening to Game Brain, produced and edited by Matthew Robinson, Tom Donnelly, Trey Alsop, and Ben Mandelker. Special thanks to Daedalus for our incredible music. More on Daedalus at GameBrainPod.com, and thanks to Edamar Peleg for our incredible graphics. Be sure to check him out at Instagram at Kerbuloni or on his website, kerbuloni.com. You can reach us by email at contact@gamebrainpod.com. And by the way, thanks for listening, and go play some games with friends or make some friends with games. Paul?
Hey, ow.
You're the rabbit.